Or do you want them to see if they can negotiate as they thought they could last time? And as Andrew pointed out, they tried to be the adults in the room last time. It didn't work out very well.
So John in Ashland says, Republicans cause all shutdowns. You're absolutely right, John. There was no such thing as a government shutdown until Republicans got the idea that they could hold government hostage. He says, stick to your guns, Dems. Please don't forget, Republicans hold all the levers of power. He says, not sure why people are so hard on the Dems. I would say habit. He says, if you're frustrated, get involved. That is absolutely right. There is never a need for a government shutdown. This is a creation that is designed to keep us in crisis.
Let's go to Ellen in Northampton. Thank you for calling, Ellen.
Hi. My representative is McGovern on the Rules Committee, so I hope he's checked out whatever it was that Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin was trying to tell Weekend Edition NPR yesterday morning, which is that in this continuing resolution, I think it's what you were just talking about, it says there will be no more government shutdowns if they pass the continuing resolution as the GOP has it queued up, because it includes that it will be on automatic forevermore, and the Democrats will no longer have any control. So I do hope that the representatives have that, as well as all of the business about Medicare and Medicaid. The fact that the GOP thinks this is the last act, the last gasp for the Dems.
That's right. I agree with you, Ellen. I think that's absolutely correct, is that there's always a method to the madness, and I think not the Democrats' inability to respond on multiple fronts simultaneously, the way they are implementing Project 2025 on all fronts simultaneously, is a big part of why we are where we are right now.
Yeah, thank you for the call, Ellen. I'm a little worried about Schumer and Jeffries, frankly, because they can't even make up their mind about Mondami, the guy that is heading. And people may know Eric Adams dropped out of the race. He's the mayor of New York who's had an awful lot of legal problems lately. He's decided to drop out. Mondami, who is a big progressive, calls himself a democratic socialist. People get nervous about that. I have been unimpressed by both Schumer and Jeffries, and as far as I know, unless I missed something over the weekend, they have not yet decided whether to endorse this guy or not. So it kind of makes them look so wishy-washy.
Completely wishy-washy.
Yeah, either endorse him or don't endorse him.
Still entrenched in old politics that keeps them in power, and it's not working. It is simply not working.
Yeah, there's a very unimpressive. I've been very unimpressed by the both of them. Anyway, Chris in Gloucester, thank you for calling.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, Gloucester got some big award, Chris. I saw you're the most. Where did I read today that Gloucester is the most wonderful seaside city in the Eastern Seaboard? Did you see that? It was pretty impressive. You beat everybody.
Yeah. But they didn't interview me, so that might have changed things. But
oh, sorry, Chris.
I think you were right before. I think that Schumer and Jeffries better be ready for Trump trying to pull a Zelensky on them. I hope they have a plan to push back on. It's going to be a circus. Trump's going to insult them. But I think the Dems have a winning issue here. Health care, the subsidies. I think it's the hill to die on. And those government workers that might not get paid, who will be most hurt, are the same ones that will be hurt by the health care cuts. So I don't think that they're going to support Trump letting these subsidies get killed.
Thank you. Thank you for the call. Thank you for the call, Chris. Yeah, I mean, this is why this big beautiful bill is so unpopular, because people realize they're going to get screwed. I mean, the estimates vary. Some people say it's 10 million going to lose health care. Some people say it's 12. But in any case, a lot of people are going to lose their health care, and they're not going to be able to afford the subsidies which help people afford Obamacare, which, if you know anybody that's on Obamacare, it's great. If you can afford it, it's great.
And the leverage that the Dems have, regardless of whether or not they don't have the numbers in the House on just regular legislation, but the leverage that they have is that the Republicans do hold all the levers of power, up to it, including other every branch of government, including the top level of SCOTUS. So people do eventually come around to realize that if the government is shut down, if government functions are shut down, if all of these people lose their jobs, people lose their health care, there is only one group to blame on it. There is no reason for this happening. There is a part of me that also believes that I think certainly on the part of the people closest to Trump and probably Trump himself, they do want government functions to shut down. I say this every single time. They do not intend for there to be another full and fair election in this country because they don't ever want to be out of power. And everything that has been put in place in every branch of government up till now is designed to do just that. So it's almost like, Brer Rabbit in the briar patch. Don't throw me in the briar patch. We can't have a shutdown. We can't have a shutdown. That may be exactly what they want.
Did you see the text from the person who says, I didn't vote and I encourage others not to vote. By voting, you lose. Did you see that text, Andrea?
No, but whoever said that that's just absolute, utter nonsense, absolutely ridiculous. If you're going to encourage other people not to vote, then, you don't really care what sort of government you live under. And anything that happens to you, you've got no basis to complain.
We have a note from a letter from our staff found from a coalition of federal worker unions in support of democratic efforts. Here's what it says. We are directly impacted when the government shuts down and members would no longer be able to work, get paid, fulfill their mission of serving the American people. But we believe the most important thing is fighting against the centralization of executive power and for the long-term survival of the critical services the federal government provides, even if that means allowing the government to temporarily shut down.
Good for them. Good for them. I mean, they're absolutely right. This administration is not working on behalf of the American people. When have you ever in the history of this country seen this amount of effort having to be put in to fight against government hurting people? Everything they do is designed to hurt the American public.
And, it's like he's forgotten all the stuff about, except for trying to get rid of people at the Fed to lower interest rates, which he's not been, they lowered a little bit, but he's not been successful at yet. I mean, there's nothing about the economy. There's nothing about the economy.
No,
Tariffs are bad. The economy's bad. People are losing jobs.
The consolidation of power and what he wants. And, Zoe says, our producer Zoe says, we did a little revolution over this 250 years ago. This is taxation without representation. The taking away of everything that Congress has appropriated money for to fit his priorities is a problem.
Margot in Hancock, New Hampshire, thanks for calling.
Hi, Marco.
Hi, how are you guys today?
Oh, it's Margot, not Marco. It's Margot. I'm sorry, Margot.
Yes, that's okay. So I don't pretend to be an expert on any of this, but my gut, I think, tells me pretty much everything that's been said already, that you cannot, negotiate with bullies. And, for them to blame any kind of shutdown, whether it happens or not, on the Democrats is just ludicrous. And I don't think that Schumer and Jeffries are being very effective at this point. And I think we hold firm. I think the Democrats should hold firm and weather this storm, whatever what happens. But I just think what's been happening is not effective and not doing anything positive. Even if we cave on this, we're still going to lose, I think.
Yeah, it's Timothy Snyder, that great guy from Yale that has written a lot about tyranny. He says, Americans can't stand around and let the nation slide into dictatorship, which is what he thinks is happening. But I think that's a lot of people's question. Well, what do we do? I mean, there is going to be the protest October 18th, the No King thing. I'm hoping that's going to be a big protest. But what can we do? Massachusetts people get frustrated with us because they say they are protesting outside ICE offices. They are writing to their congresspeople. But of course, in Massachusetts, the congresspeople are all Democrats. They want leadership.
People want leadership at the top, the people that we elected to lead us. And that's why I agree with overwhelmingly our texts. People are texting and saying, take a stand, finally take a stand, do something. They should be on the floor of the House. All of that speech time that they get, all that, sort of everybody gets an opportunity to make speeches every single day. They should be on the floor of the House. C-SPAN should be covering it. They should be, like I say, pay money to make commercials about government, about the stuff that people aren't learning in civics, about democracy, about who didn't vote, the numbers that didn't vote.
Was it 90 million?
90 million. There's 245 eligible registered voters in this country in the last election. 90 million, which is more than a third, did not vote. That is why the Trump administration is in its second term.
Tim in New Hampshire, thank you for calling.
Hi, Tim.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my call. So, first of all, I agree with you about the feckle nature of the Democratic Party. And I'm going to sum it all up for you. here's the problem. I don't think that we're headed to a dictatorship. I think we're in an oligarchy, and the overriding problem with the Democratic Party is that some of the Democrats are oligarchs as well. And Mr. Schumer and Mr. Jeffries, with all the good speechifying from Mr. Jeffries, he really represents the oligarchs. And Chuck Schumer, he votes with Wall Street every single time, and he's like, I'm an old man, and I'm like half his age mentally. He's just like, I mean, we take down, the Republican Party is reactionary, and guess what? Half the Democratic Party is too. They want to go back to Joe Biden being the prime example. He thought everything was hunky-dory, and, just because we had a drink with that senator or this senator, everything was going to be fine in the end. No, that's not the way it works anymore. And the oligarchs own both parties outright. That's what we're in. We're not headed to an oligarchy. We're in one right now. And Donald Trump is so transactional, he can be purchased by whomever has the most money.
Tim, that was a very impassioned call about the biggest problem, which is money in government. We have too much money in government. He's absolutely right. I mean, the Wall Street impact. It's incredible how we're talking about all these companies, that were nervous about doing anything to annoy Trump because Paramount wanted to have their merger, and so they had to, settle this ridiculous lawsuit. Now people are worried about what's going to happen with CBS News. 60 Minutes was not pro-Trump, I would say, their debut last night. But this is because these oligarchs have all gotten together and bought up everything. There's monopolies. It's oligarch and monopolies. There used to be a fight whether you could own a newspaper and a television station in the same market. Boy, that's out the window, isn't it?
But Tim makes such an excellent point about that because, and the proof of that is that it's not just in politics. The proof of that is Harvard University. Every college and university who suddenly decided that everything that they said they stood for around equal opportunity, around education and righting historic wrongs, suddenly, all of a sudden, those things don't matter anymore. And what matters is whether or not the federal government gives the money. Law firms, who are the best equipped and have the most talent to fight back in court with real effect, to fight back in court on this stuff, folded. It's about money, and it's about the bottom line, and it's about where that money comes from, who gets it, and who wants to keep it. So I think Tim's point is well taken.
And the other thing is, Andrea, wouldn't you think if you have like $100 million, wouldn't you think you're pretty much set for life? You wouldn't really have to worry much anymore.
Right.
It's like, that's not enough. It's going to be more than that. Wasn't Musk for a while on the verge of becoming, he's not now, but the first trillionaire? I mean, it really is a little over the top when you can become a trillionaire.
But that's what the Gilded Age was about as well. Yeah. The problem now is, unions came to the fore during the Gilded Age and beat that back. Now you see a steady drumbeat to neutralize unions, and you even see unions voting against their own interests in elections and either not endorsing people who want to see them gone or failing to endorse at all.
Well, that's one of the big things, is that the leadership of the union may be endorsing one person, but the membership is increasingly voting for Donald Trump.
And federal workers are unionized as well.
Ellen in Westport, thank you for calling.
Hi, Ellen.
Good morning, ladies. How are you?
Good.
Fine, thanks.
Listen, I am so angry from being angry. I think we need to go after these people, okay, specifically the president and friends. We need to handle them like the military would if they were at war, okay? Send out the drones. We don't have enough Supreme Court justices. We need a Supreme Court justice for 50 states to represent 300+ million people. Okay, they can assist the state judges. He's firing and suing and doing whatever. We don't have enough in the ammunition to deal with these people. Okay, and
wait a minute, Ellen. Okay. Are we talking about warfare here? Where are you sending?
We're just talking about getting some people to deal with them. Power in numbers, Marjorie. I'm old school. I'm done with this. My blood pressure, oh my goodness.
You can hear her blood pressure.
That last caller was awesome, okay? I like this oligarch. Those people in there that want to shut down things.
Ellen, I'm sorry. We have to take a break, but we don't want you to have a cardiac event. We're going to take a few deep breaths. We're going to take a quick break. We'll have more of your calls and texts next in a moment. I'm Andrea Cabral in for Jim Browdy. She's Marjorie Egan. We are listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM, and we're streaming on youtube.com/GBH News. Somebody check on Ellen.
At one time, at least 7 species of humans roamed the Earth, but only one spread to all corners of the globe.
In a similar way to the way you and I might look at a landscape and go, ooh, what's on the other side of that mountain? Let's go just check it out. I think our ancestors had that as well.
How and why Homo sapiens survived and thrived. Next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Moderna. mNEXSpike COVID-19 vaccine, mRNA, by Moderna, is available. More information about mNEXSpike is available from pharmacists and medical providers. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing coverage plans for individuals, families, employers, and retirees with benefits that help you live in your moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. I'm Marjorie Egan, Massachusetts former Secretary of Public Safety. Andrew Cabral is filling in for Jim. He's going to be back tomorrow. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I want to mention again, we're not going to be at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. I apologize. We had technical issues, but the governor is going to be with us here in Studio 3 in Brighton for Ask the Governor from 11 till 12, so you can call or text and get your questions in. I would say people are pretty fired up today, Andrew. They're very fired up.
They are. Well, I think that's what we're getting. We're seeing it in the text and we're seeing it in the calls. Call his bluff. That's what people are saying. The reason that people, are frustrated because people capitulate to Trump and don't call his bluff, despite the fact there's overwhelming evidence that he constantly threatens something and then pulls back when it gets too hot for him.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you call his bluff on this? Why wouldn't Democrats call his bluff? Why haven't they been doing it all this time? So, yes, I think that's why people are fired up.
Well, that's the deal. The Democrats are meeting with the president today, and they're discussing a looming government shutdown. It's the 30th, right? It was shut down on the 30th. What's today? The 28th, 29th?
29th.
Okay, so we got talking about one more day, and whether we want the Democrats to say no, they're not going to cooperate with Republicans and shut the government down. By the way, one of the things I think that was so exciting to people about Jimmy Kimmel is that he hit back harder after he was reinstated to his show.
People are waiting for
down at all, and I think it was very, very uplifting to people to see that for all the Harvard's they're not standing up. They said they were. They're not really standing up. All these elite law firms, as you pointed out, are not standing up. Late night
because everybody knows,
comedians.
As the caller said, you don't negotiate with a bully. It just empowers them.
But how sad is it that people are standing up with the late night comedians?
Right.
I mean, you would kind of think it would be somebody else, but no.
Maybe somebody you elected to actually do that. Let's talk to Carol in Saugus. Hi, Carol.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Fine, thanks. Worked up, Carol. We're worked up.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
I just want to say part of this Trump business is white supremacy. And people think each little episode that he does, they don't take a larger picture. Every step of this is the white Christian far right is using him as much as he's using them because they want to keep power. They want to keep, supposedly the country's got to be white, but they want to maintain that.
Yeah.
And the chance of all these immigrants and non-white people scares the hell out of them. And they don't think women, gays, anybody who's not them deserves to stay in power. And this is part of a fight. They're mutually allied to get rid of everybody else's rights.
And here, Carol, I couldn't agree with you more. I say it all the time myself. Thank you for calling and saying it. But here's the thing. They wrote it down. Yeah. They wrote it down. It's in Project 2025. they actually put it down on paper. They have been writing versions of Project 2025 for decades now. But this last version, they actually wrote it down. It was right there for everybody to see, and Democrats didn't start talking about Project 2025 until very late in the game.
You did. You were talking about it very early on.
Because it's a plan. It is an actual written plan that they're nearly 50% completed on it. Of all of the things that are in it. I've gone through all of the things that are in it, and I've looked at, there's a website that keeps track of their progress, and they're nearly 50%. Last time I looked, and it was several weeks ago, it was 47% completed.
Oh, my God.
Of what's in project.
So you've got another 50% to go?
Don't intend to give it back. That's what I keep saying to people. Let's talk to Harry in Stoughton. Hi, Harry.
Hi, folks. Great show, as always. I've been listening for years.
Oh, thank you, Harry.
Thank you, Harry.
I don't know why we're so surprised at what's happening to this country. The corporations have been trying to dumb us down for years, and I'm not a socialist. I believe in free enterprise, but for years they've been wanting to turn citizens into consumers, obedient consumers who whatever frustrations they have, they just go out and buy something. They don't get involved in politics. They don't get involved in their local government. Here in Stoughton, I'm ashamed to say that our last selectman board's election, we had an 11% turnout of voters.
Wow.
That's shameful.
11%.
Wow.
Yeah, no joke. Yeah, hardly anybody voted. And that's what they want. They want obedient consumers. I'm not talking about the Orwell 1984 movie, but it's become that. Do you know how many commercial messages Americans are bombarded with every day?
It is amazing.
Not only on TV. Yeah. So we've lost our ability to think straight because it's a cacophony. 1,000 voices coming from 1,000 different directions, and no way to sort out what's important and what isn't anymore. All they want is obedient, non-critical consumers. Now, I know that sounds a little bit like a science fiction movie, but look at the algorithms on the internet. I don't even go on social media, but the algorithms are all designed to find what you're interested in and what you want to buy. And there was a movement. Yeah, there was a movement years ago where they had. Where supposedly you go out and buy things before the Christmas holiday.
Right.
There was a movement that was called Buy Nothing Friday. Well, that failed because the corporations just bombarded us with how silly it was. There was a book called Affluenza, which meant that people measured the value of their lives based on how much they own.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't all live like paupers. And I don't begrudge anybody who wants to earn money honestly and work hard. I'm a small businessman myself. Anyway, that's my theory.
No, we got you, Harry. I mean, you raise great points.
He's right.
I think it has become in many it's just all about the money.
Except that we're not actually the consumers. We're the product. We're being sold by corporations to advertisers who are advertising the products we buy.
Yeah.
We are. I mean, he's right. He's right about us them wanting us to consume, but we are also the product, and not realizing that I think is to our detriment.
And fewer of us are able to consume because people are not able to make ends meet.
No, that's very true.
Okay.
We are out of time for our talker this morning, but as always, thank you for your calls and your texts. Thank you for being fired up. Coming up after this quick break, we'll talk through the latest at the intersection of politics and health with none other than our own Michael Curry, who is head of the Massachusetts League of Community Health Centers and a board member of the NAACP. I'm Andrea Cabral in for Jim Browdy. She's Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM, and we're also streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Learn something new.
I want to start with how crowds of people can act like fluids.
Yes.
What?
I mean, this is physics, so I love it.
Make a connection.
I have no idea who they voted for. I don't care. This tailgate in particular, everybody's welcome.
dig a bit deeper.
We're often looking for a small secular liturgy for our lives, and poetry can provide that sometimes.
Stay curious with All Things Considered from NPR News.
This afternoon at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Gentle Giant Moving Company, official moving and storage provider for the head of the Charles Regatta, employing rowers and athletes since 1980 and currently hiring to join their team. More at gentlegiant.com. And MIT Sloan Executive Education, offering dynamic short programs tailored for mid-career professionals looking to build expertise in innovation, leadership, and technology. Details at executive.mit.edu.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Andrew Gibran, former Suffolk County Sheriff, is here with us today, filling in for Jim Brady. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I want to mention again, we will not be at the Boston Public Library tomorrow because we've had some technical problems. The governor will be with us here in Studio 3 from 11 till noon. You can still call 877-301-8970 with your texts or your calls if you want to speak to the governor. But right now, we are joined on Zoom by Michael Curry, CEO of the Mass League Community Health Centers, on the board of the National NAACP. I understand he's down at a Health and Human Services conference. That should be something this week, I think. We'll talk to him about that in a second. Yeah. Michael, thank you for joining us.
So this is, Michael, this is a federal
Glad
HHS.
Glad to be with you.
This is a federal HHS conference?
Well, there was two things. I was here in D.C. for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation annual conference, and then here for some meetings with HRSA, and which is of course under HHS. So I'm here for both.
Okay, good, because we're going to be covering both with you. I want to start. There was a great essay by Nicole Hannah-Jones. People may know she was responsible for the 1619 project, that great project done by the New York Times that talked about the history of slavery in the United States, which displeased a lot of people in the Trump camp. But in any case, she tells a great story in this essay about 11-year-old little black girl coming home after Charlie Kirk was assassinated to tell her father how sad she felt about this. Did you get a chance to see this essay, Michael?
I did.
Yeah.
I got a chance to see it. And of course, I think it speaks to what many of us as parents are dealing with right now.
Yeah, tell us about how he had to kind of set her straight and just explain it was okay to be sad, but there were some buts to go along with it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a child on a campus, whether it's elementary, middle school, high school, or college, and you're a student and you're in classrooms with people who are very emotionally impacted by the death of Charlie Kirk, and you are trying to understand who he was. Many people didn't even know who Charlie Kirk was or is.
Right.
And didn't really know his history or his rhetoric. And now, as a child, particularly a young child, and you're coming home saying, hey, my classmates, their parents, their communities are mourning this person. And now, you're going to be inclined to want to go on social media and look him up and listen to his rhetoric and understand why he's being treated as a saint. And then you find out as a little black girl that he thought that black women, particularly Michelle Obama and our Supreme Court and others, Joy Reid, were unintelligent and were taking the seats of white folks. That you saw what he said about gay people, or that black folks live differently under Jim Crow, and almost presented that as if we lived better under Jim Crow, more controlled under Jim Crow. That when you start to unpack his rhetoric, you find out as a young child, you say, wait a minute, I can't reconcile the mourning that America's going through, the celebration about his rhetoric, his freedom of speech, his Christianity, with this language, with his words, and words matter. So that parent was really trying to deal with how to make sure that his child did not go unprepared into those conversations.
My heart broke at the notion that this young girl, I mean, the way the story is told, her friends were encouraging her to feel sad about it. Now, I don't think for a minute that kids as young as that probably, to your point, knew exactly who Charlie Kirk was. But the But the obscenity of that, the perversity of that, you can feel sad about, the level of violence that anyone would be murdered in broad daylight, all of those kinds of things. But the perversity of a child not understanding that she was being asked to mourn for someone who was personified white male mediocrity, but was being lionized in part for his willingness to denigrate the intelligence of someone who looked like her. That broke my heart.
Yeah, mine too. I mean, ultimately, death, political violence. We know all of us have said this, and all of you have said that, right? It's intolerable. We can fight in ideas and don't have to pick up guns and use weapons and take someone's life from their children, from his wife in his case. That we know that we can denounce, but what we shouldn't do is forget the words behind the person. Now, I studied journalism, persuasion, argumentation in college, and we sat down at Macalester College in St. Paul, Minnesota. I got recruited to Macalester for debating, and we spent a lot of time dissecting Hitler's speeches and Dr. King's speeches. We can be students of the oratory. We can understand how language is delivered and how the importance of freedom of speech, but yet we can denounce the person, the words, their actions. And I think ultimately that's what this is about with Charlie Kirk. To make him to make him saintly is disturbing. To make him a model for Christianity is equally disturbing. And then for society writ large to normalize that, where now flags are flying at half-staff, that students are being told to acknowledge him and his contributions in classrooms. Now, I say this, and Andrea, I'm going to say this in a way that we as Black folks would appreciate. And whether or not I said this to Marjorie recently, whether this was Reverend Wright or Minister Farrakhan, would they be celebrating the free speech if this was coming from somebody else who happened to be Black?
No, I think that the answer is very, very clear there. Speaking of race issues, Michael, a lot of upset about white nationalist imagery in ICE recruiting commercials. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a Twilight Zone episode, right? Where all of the perverse white racial pornography that we feared is now being popularized and used. And ultimately, we know that images matter as well. And if you can show people as criminals, and it actually just goes back to Charlie Kirk conversation when he characterized Black communities and ultimately Black people. And now that's playing out in how ICE is promoting its activities. We know that Latinos are proud, serving Americans. We know that people who are coming from the southern border came here for the same reason as those Irish folk who came here after the potato famine, and those Jews who were trying to escape Nazi Germany, and those Polish and those Italian who came here for a better opportunity, and were treated and talked about the same way that we're now talking about folks from Haiti or folks from other dark Black and brown countries. I do not see anyone on television who is white being swept up in these ICE raids. And there are undocumented white folks in the United States. So let's be clear on what this activity is about.
There really isn't much question about it. And I've talked, many times about back in 2004, 2005, there was a report put out when Obama was president about active recruitment into the FBI of white supremacists and white nationalists. Republicans in Congress at the time objected to the release of the report, and to its discredit, the Obama administration didn't respond with, what makes you think we're talking about you when we talk about recruitment of white nationalists into the FBI? They watered down the report, and it sort of landed with a thud. But this level of recruitment has been going on for a long period of time, and now it's probably at its most blatant. But can you speak a little bit, Mike, to the trying to recruit, they're specifically trying to recruit from existing law enforcement. Can you talk a little bit about what that saves them in their view in terms of the training that someone might need to start with ICE and the incentives that they're offering along with this imagery?
Yeah, so, it's funny. I was talking to Mayor Wu's staff about 2 weeks ago, and I don't think some of the staff that I were talking to had seen the ads that are running regularly on local television in Boston. Like literally, stay up overnight and you'll probably see 20 ads before you get out of the bed in the morning. And they're really about recruiting Boston police officers because they're very targeted with the ads I saw, recruiting Boston police officers to leave. And they say, basically, the tone is like, you're being disrespected, not appreciated. If you want to do God's work, and I'm going to use that phrase, and you want to keep us from those people and you want to protect our borders, and you want to keep them out of the country, then you need to come work for ICE. And I say this to your question, Andrea. We knew that law enforcement was a safe haven for folks. An FBI report and local police department reports have proven that folks with racial animus can go hide within law enforcement and they can take lives and without repercussions, qualified immunity, that they can treat communities with disrespect, that they can hide behind a gun and a badge. And I don't know what that percentage is. I don't know if that's 2%, Marjorie, or if that's 60%, right? I just know that it's become a safe haven. So that's all law enforcement. That's every level of law enforcement from local all the way up to federal. So the challenge for us now is to figure out under this administration how much they're drawing from local law enforcement in communities and drawing them into federal agencies, and then deploying them back into our communities with federal power and federal authority and federal immunity is terrifying for those of us who've been really trying to fight to hold law enforcement accountable. I say that for all the Black police officers at every level, from FBI who've dealt with discrimination within FBI, and I've talked to, down to folks on the street level who are serving in our communities across the country who are Black and brown police officers. They want change too, and this is disturbing.
Michael, you're down there in D.C. talking with some people about health issues. Obviously, you run public health in Massachusetts. I'm wondering what the reaction is. We had a wild week last week between the president going on and on about Tylenol and RFK making us nervous about vaccines, and Trump saying you should spread out vaccines. By the way, here is Trump during the memorial. Oh, never mind. We're not going to play that one now. I'm sorry. That's the Tylenol one. We're going to play that later. But he basically said, don't take Tylenol if you're pregnant.
We do have a little sound of that. We have do we have it? Yeah. Let's play the sound of Trump at the press conference last Monday cautioning people not to take Tylenol.
Don't take Tylenol. There's no downside. Don't take it.
What?
Okay, that and talking about now he's talking about spreading out the vaccines. Don't do measles, mumps, and rubella together. Do them separately because everybody knows it's better to go to the doctor 3 or 4 times than it is to go to the doctor 1 time to get those vaccines. Shoot your kid in the arm, or the butt, wherever they give them 3. The kid will love that. Right. But I mean, you can't even get them, as I understand, separated. They come together, and then to wait later for hepatitis B and blah blah blah. I mean, what are people thinking down there that are health experts that you're talking with?
Well, I can't tell you what everybody down here is thinking. I can just tell you what a few people are thinking. But here's what I say. So just one correction. I don't run public health. I'm just we love that phrase. I'm just a bill sitting on Capitol Hill.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So, Commissioner Goldstein and I was with Dr. Jakutu at RCC this week. They do a phenomenal job on a state and local level, really championing public health. And they understand the value and the importance of vaccines. Now, what if I told you stop drinking water, because you don't need to drink water every day. Yeah. Stop breathing. Don't try to do 10,000 steps a day because it won't provide any value for me. Some things are res ipsa loquitur. They speak for themselves. It's idiotic. It's not sensical. It's not science-based. And what we know is that the rhetoric around Tylenol, the rhetoric around vaccines more generally, are not science-based conversations. And unfortunately, I'm sitting, Andrea, in a barbershop last week, and I'm sitting in a chair, and the barbershop gets a little crowded. And all of a sudden they start talking about, the Trump position on Tylenol. And the barber turns to me and says, Michael, can you explain that for everybody in the barbershop? So imagine now I become the expert in the barbershop when I'm just trying to get a haircut. So I say this because some of the folks, and they were all black men in that barbershop, some of the folks have bought this garbage and started to believe because of one study, one disproven study, one faulty study, that they've started to believe what they hear in the news because they don't take Tylenol, because they haven't gotten a vaccine and yet haven't gotten COVID or didn't get the flu. And therefore their lived experience, their personal experience, they want to translate to all people. We got to be careful, as Commissioner Goldstein and Dr. Jakuchu was explaining, public health ain't just about you.
Yeah.
Public health is about all of us. It's about creating some degree of immunity. It's about making sure that people have access to CDC data that's reliable so that people, doctors and physicians and hospitals and community health centers can make sound, science-based, evidence-based decisions around how to treat their patients. It ain't about your gut. And it ain't about listening to people who are not doctors, physicians, opine about what we should be doing with our bodies.
But I don't understand how anyone, even if they're just thinking about themselves, would take medical advice, first of all, from somebody who is not a doctor, isn't close to that, but who suggested that they inject bleach in order to fight COVID and pushed these sort of snake oil salesman type remedies that were being, sold on some of these right-wing stations. I don't understand why anybody would listen to him. That's the other thing. And the second thing is the Tylenol thing was connected to well-debunked allegations of false claims around the connection between that and autism. And he was speaking to pregnant women.
Yeah.
I mean, he was advising, this guy was advising pregnant women not to take the one thing they can take to keep fevers down, and fevers do lead to birth defects. Not in overwhelming numbers, but there is a connection between birth defects and high fevers in pregnant women.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, he's acknowledged in his own way that he's not a physician, right? He's, meaning RFK Jr. He's acknowledged he's not a physician. Trump and his advice is well documented on how to respond to COVID, even though he got a monoclonal antibody when he was sick with COVID, because he wanted to make sure he didn't progress to more serious illness. We got to just be careful. Ultimately, what this comes down to, as I said to the folks at Roxbury Community College who gathered for their annual summit on many topics in health, I said, your most powerful weapon that you own right now is your ability to read, write, and listen. Right now, you have to pay attention to what the truth is, because the truth is elusive. That means you need to be reading quality, reliable sources. You need to be turned back on your TV, because I know many of us turned it off. Turn it back on, because now what you're getting in guidance from other sources, particularly social media, will dictate what happens with your kids in school, what health guidance you take, and so many other aspects of your life. Now is the time to be informed. And we know that the data, the information coming out of DC right now is not the reliable information we need to survive. Tylenol is reliable. We know that vaccines save lives. They quite frankly, COVID-19 saved a significant amount of the world's population from dying. We knew that we are not in the Spanish flu, where we had no vaccines. We are now in COVID-19, and future pandemics are coming, and we need that science to save our lives.
Michael, what about the guys in the barbershop? Were you able to persuade them that they were wrong?
So funny, as I think some of us, and the two of you and Jim hold this position as well, people trust us. And if you've been trustworthy, then people trust you. So do I think everyone in the barbershop trusted me? No, but I think a majority of the men in that barbershop today know that I speak truth. I'm unbossed and unbought. And that ultimately, if I tell you what I've read and understand to be the truth, having, represented chief medical officers across Massachusetts who work in health centers, that we discuss data on a regular basis and guidance for health center patients, the million patients we serve, then they say, you know what, Mike told me that we're good. And they go back to their families and communities and say, Mike Curry told me we're good. I feel super blessed and thankful to be in that position.
Well, Mike, I got my COVID booster. I get them like clockwork every 6 months. I got my flu shot. Tell people what because HHS has not ruled on the recommendation to change vaccinations yet. So where are we now with vaccination schedules? What should people be doing now?
And we've got less than a minute left.
Yeah, just really quickly. So now we are fortunate to be in Massachusetts because we have a phenomenal governor, Governor Healy, a relatively new secretary, Kiame Mahania, and of course, a Medicaid director, Mike Levine, and Robbie Goldstein at Department of Public Health. And then we got local public health officials across the state, like in Boston, Dr. Ojikutu. They are making vaccines available for communities. They're going to make sure that we have vaccine data available for our communities so that in Massachusetts, we make sound science-based decisions about how to treat our own health, but give our providers guidance on how to provide care for us. So thank you, Massachusetts, for once again stepping up, standing out.
Michael, thank you as always
Michael.
for joining us. We much appreciate it.
Thank you. We've been speaking with Michael Curry. He's the CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers, and he's on the board of the National NAACP. We say goodbye to you listening on NEPM, but please make sure to tune in to the fabulous 413 starting at 3 o'clock this afternoon, coming up after the noon news on 89.7 GBH. Boston Medical Center's Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett is going to help us make sense of confusing health guidance from Washington on vaccines, Tylenol, and more. I'm Andrea Cabral. I'm in for Jim Browdy. She's Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM, and we're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Boston Speakers Series, continuing its season at Symphony Hall with 7 evenings, featuring Ken Burns, Outliers author Malcolm Gladwell, and freed Russian political prisoner Vladimir Karamurza. BostonSpeakers.org. A New American Experience tells the story of the violent clash between students protesting against the Vietnam War and construction workers in downtown New York City. Watch Hard Hat Riot tomorrow at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Marjorie Egan. Ahead on hour number 2 of BPR, we talk with Boston Medical Center's Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett about health, public safety, and where you can look for good information with the President of the United States touting conspiracy theories about Tylenol. Plus, getting a COVID booster is going to look different this year, what you need to know to stay healthy as diseases make their rounds.
I'm Andrea Cabral in for Jim Browdy. There's never been a better time to escape to the movies. And with October around the corner, we're settling into the season of scares with Boston Globe film critic Odie Henderson, here with all you need to know on horror classics, old and new. All that, plus our quick hit whirlwind segment, 2 More Things, ahead on BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Louise Schiavone. President Trump is expected to meet with top congressional leaders at the White House today. Lawmakers are facing a critical deadline tomorrow to pass a temporary spending bill. NPR's Barbara Sprunt reports if Congress fails to reach a bipartisan compromise, the government could partially shut down at midnight.
The meeting is somewhat of a redo. Top Democrats were supposed to meet with President Trump last week to negotiate a path forward and avoid a shutdown, but the president canceled that meeting. The Oval Office meeting today will come hours before the Senate is expected to vote on a House-passed continuing resolution to fund the government through late November. Senate Democrats previously blocked that from advancing. They want to negotiate with Republicans to address expanded Affordable Care Act subsidies that expire at the end of the year. Republicans are pushing to pass the stopgap bill first and then negotiate. Barbara Sprent, NPR News, Washington.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is at the White House at this hour. He's expected to talk to President Trump about a potential framework to end fighting with Hamas in Gaza. NPR's Daniel Estrin has details on the reported shape of Netanyahu's plans.
I spoke with a person briefed on the proposal who confirmed to me some of the main points. It calls on Hamas to release all 48 of its remaining hostages, living and dead, up front. And then it calls for a gradual process where a multinational Arab and Muslim peacekeeping force would enter Gaza and Israeli forces would withdraw. Now, this is a plan that Trump presented to leaders of Arab countries in New York last week. It is the most serious effort yet since Trump entered office to end the war and to chart a post-war future for Gaza.
NPR's Daniel Estrin. After a stormy appearance at the United Nations last week, Israel is increasingly isolated after losing support from many previous nations aligned with its strategies. The FBI is leading the investigation into yesterday's deadly attack at a church in Grand Blanc, Michigan. At least 4 people were killed. 8 others were injured by a gunman who crashed his pickup into the building. Steve Carmody with Michigan Public has more.
The attack took place during Sunday morning services at a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc, Michigan, about 60 miles north of Detroit. 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford allegedly drove his truck through the church's doors and began shooting, and authorities say deliberately set the church building on fire. Sanford died after exchanging gunfire with police. Reuben Coleman is the acting special agent in charge of the FBI Detroit field office.
The FBI is now leading the investigation and is investigating this as an act of targeted violence.
Authorities are not disclosing any possible motive behind the attack. For NPR News, I'm Steve Carmody in Flint, Michigan.
The Dow is down 78. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Craig Lamolt. Governor Maura Healey is standing by the State Department of Transportation amid questions about its selection process for the company that was going to rebuild the new rest stops on the Mass Pike. Last week, the company chosen by MassDOT, Applegreen, pulled out of negotiations to revamp the plazas. The withdrawal came as the runner-up in the process, Waltham-based Global Partners, claimed the agency gave Applegreen preferential treatment. Healey says she thinks MassDOT ran a transparent search. But with Applegreen out of the picture, she says the state's now looking for a new company to do the job.
There's a major contract for the state. I want to make sure it's done right, it's done well, and that at the end of the day, it delivers the very best product in quality for our residents, for our customers, for our drivers.
If the work moves ahead, 18 Mass Pike rest stops will be reconstructed. In the event of a partial government shutdown, visitors to Massachusetts would most likely have to wait to explore national parks and historic sites. The National Park Service says most of its staff will be furloughed and parks would be closed. And GBH's Diana Dame reports new data shows just under 9 million people visited those sites last year.
Visitors to national park properties in Massachusetts spent $950 million in 2024, which sustained almost 9,000 jobs, according to new data from the National Park Service. The state's hospitality industry benefited the most, with visitors spending 2/3 of that money on lodging and restaurants. Retail stores, gas stations, and campsites also saw significant spending from visitors. National Park Service Acting Regional Director Steve Sims says national parks tell America's story while fueling jobs and businesses across the Commonwealth. Diana Dame, GBH News.
Some clouds later today, temperatures reaching 80. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. I'm Marjorie Egan. I'm here with Andrea Cabral, who's filling in for Jim. He'll be back tomorrow. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We will not, unfortunately, be at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. We had some technical problems on Friday. We will be here, though, in the Studio 3 in Brighton with Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey. She'll be with us from 11 till noon for another edition of Ask the Governor, taking our questions and yours. But we're joined now by Dr. Katherine Barnett, Vice Chair of Primary Care Innovation and Transformation at Boston Medical Center, Associate Professor at BU's Medical School, and an Aspen Institute Health Innovators Fellow. Hello, Dr. KGB,
Hi.
as we like to call you.
Hello, wonderful to see you both.
Good to see you.
Marjorie, you sound like you're on like 1.5 speed there with introduction.
It's National Coffee Day, and Marjorie is making the most of it. Oh yeah,
I'm trying to keep.
We can talk later.
Okay, I'm trying to talk as fast as Jim. Maybe that's it. I'm under pressure.
Yeah.
But I tell you, we were just talking to Michael Curry, a big public health expert here in Massachusetts. He was talking about being in a barbershop the other day where the guys in there were all saying, well, I don't know about these COVID vaccines. I don't know about but Tylenol, maybe we don't need the vaccine, blah, 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 blah. So let's start with Tylenol. You're based in science. You're in the real world. You're not running for office. You're a physician. What should we be doing about Tylenol?
So there has been a lot of confusion, as Michael Curry pointed out. I will say from the very top of our interview and our conversation, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, WHO, all of the groups that are based in medicine and in science still say without any doubt that Tylenol still remains the pain and fever reducing medicine of choice for pregnant women. We know that with all medications, it must be taken at the lowest effective dose for the shortest duration. We can talk about the evidence that we know, the things that we know are not true, but just to be very, very clear that women who are pregnant, women who are thinking about getting pregnant, women who may have doubted themselves since Monday's press conference last week about how well or not well they took care of their in utero pregnancies should understand that Tylenol is safe.
Dr. Barnett, beyond the idea that, as Mike was saying to us, people can hear Trump or RFK Jr. go on television and say, don't do a particular thing, this is bad for you, and sort of, throw things into chaos and make people worry that if they take a Tylenol, something terrible is going to happen, and particularly pregnant women. Beyond the impact that has, the immediate visceral impact that has, can you speak a little bit to how this is affecting the availability of critical science and evidence-based information for people to have access to? Because if the feds aren't making they're pulling down information that they disagree with, so you don't have access to it. How does that affect your ability to get the right message out?
Yeah, so we know, let me sort of kind of back up in terms of, I shared a little bit about this in terms of the last time I was on with you, Marjorie and Jim, about science and how trials are done. So if somebody is pregnant, you cannot do what we call a randomized controlled trial, which is sort of the gold standard of science, where some people get one medicine, some people don't get the medicine. You can, kind of compare those things. And Andre, I'm going to get back to your important question. And those, if you can't do that, then you have to look at what we call observational. So you just look at large cohorts of populations and you try to draw conclusions, right? And we know that an association is not the same thing as a causation. So just to go back very clearly for your listeners, what we do know at this point is that there's no evidence showing that there is a cause, that autism is not caused by Tylenol. So what feels very confusing for people who are not in science, or even some people who are in science, is that you can say, okay, there's all these studies that are coming out that show there may be an association of things, right? The analogy I used last time I was on the show that I think is really kind of perfectly captures this is we know that violent crimes go up in our city and all cities on hot days. We know that's true. We also know that people eat more ice cream on hot days. Right. So, but you're not going to say it's the ice cream that causes the violent crimes.
Right. Exactly.
And so I think that's
not yet anyway.
Not yet.
Not
yet. It depends on the flavor. It might be so bad, but I think that's really important. And you know, part of the reason that there's been so much confusion is there's a really important set of evidence that came out from some Harvard researchers at School of Public Health there, looking at observational studies with Tylenol and autism and saying, there looks like there's an association, but there's no causation. Looks like there might be some association. What do we actually know in terms of some of the data? Two things. One is there actually is a causation that we know between fevers, women who get fevers in their pregnancy, and things like autism and ADHD. We know this from large studies that one came out in Norway, where they're looking at specifically in second trimester, right? So not the early weeks, but the sort of middle of your pregnancy, where high fevers and recurrent fevers increase the risk of autism greatly. When do women take Tylenol? When they're having fevers, okay? So that is a really important thing. So back to your question, Andrea, is like, how do we get the whole picture of all the things that are maybe coming into it? And by the way, and anybody in the autism world would tell you this, autism is a spectrum, right? And it's really multivariant, very, like almost nobody has the exact same manifestation of autism. And to say something like Tylenol causes autism, once again, goes back and blames the woman in this case for taking a medication that's actually causing harm versus actually looking at all the other factors like genetics. There are likely environmental factors. There are likely many other things. One more thing I'm just going to say about this, because we could talk about it all day. There was a really important study that came out of Sweden. They came to as close to a randomized control trial as we'll ever have, which looked at mothers who had had multiple babies. And some of the babies had been exposed to Tylenol and some had not, right? So that's a perfect kind of setup for a trial. This idea of autism and Tylenol being Tylenol causing autism fell apart in this work. It was 2.8 million people studied, and we show that there is actually no causation between Tylenol and autism. So I just wanted to remind your listeners that there's a lot of really important data and science out there, but also really want to ensure that women understand fundamentally, obviously, you're going to talk to your healthcare provider. If you have questions, I agree that Tylenol bottles, like everything, should talk about how often should you take this? For how long should you take this? What's the maximum dose? Talk to your, provider if you've taken this more than 24 hours and you still have a fever. Like, we want to understand, why do women have a fever, right?
Right.
We want to be able to treat that. So we could talk all about it all day, but the fact is talk to trusted healthcare professionals. Trusted is the, underscored point here. And I think, to your point, Andrea and Marjorie, what you were saying earlier is like, how do we know who to trust?
Right.
And please, like, I don't want to disrespect any voices out there, but if you are going to be making a medical decision for yourself or a loved one, please talk to a healthcare professional.
Okay. The other thing, and we're talking with Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett, the other thing that Trump said, well, he said many things, but don't give Tylenol to your babies. Millions of people have given infant Tylenol to their babies when babies get sick or have a fever. And to spread out the vaccines, measles, mumps, and rubella, usually given one shot. He wants to have, I guess you go for once for the measles, once for the mumps, and once for rubella. I don't think that's possible, but tell us about that.
Yes, Marjorie, that is true. We don't actually have single vaccines. We don't have a measles vaccine and a mumps vaccine or rubella vaccine, in part because we have decades of research showing that MMR is safe when given in combination. My concern for this is, again, it sows confusion and doubt and fear, and then it leaves our children exposed to when they may, for instance, if they wait several weeks or a month between the measles and the mumps, and then rubella is going to take many months to get that vaccine. Likely, again, thinking about a place like Boston Medical Center or many other places, parents are busy. They've got jobs oftentimes, and in addition, with other responsibilities. To come back 3 times to get one vaccine that we know, again, data time and time again, multiple clinical trials have shown us that this is safe. The way that we now bunch together our vaccines is safe. That being said, I have families come in who want to spread out vaccines and absolutely work with them to do that, right? If a family feels uncomfortable getting all of the recommended vaccines all at once, they have the right to spread those things out. But what people should know is that it's going to allow the child to be exposed at places where it may put them at greater risk. I think hepatitis B is a perfect example. It's talked about as a sexually transmitted disease. Why would you give this to a baby? The fact is we give the first hepatitis B vaccine to a baby when it's born because it's very high risk of being transmitted from the mother when it comes out through a vaginal delivery and or is in utero. So I think I think these kinds of things are really important to remember, that there is a reason for these things. It's not just, kind of willy-nilly decisions about when to give vaccines and when not to give vaccines.
Infant Tylenol is okay for the infants?
Correct.
Okay.
Again, follow the dose
recommended.
Follow the weight recommended. Don't do it for more than 24 hours without understanding what's happening with your infant. And again, we have very clear requirements of when an infant should be seen, even with a low-grade fever, to get a further workup for sepsis.
Dr. Barnett, where does the recommendation from the CDC that makes these changes to COVID vaccines or any other vaccine schedule changes, where does that stand right now? And what do you foresee in the future if individual providers or hospitals go against this guidance and go on it with a scientific evidence-based approach?
Yeah. So the good news is there are lots of pieces of good news we can talk about today. The CDC has actually come out and across the board still recommended COVID-19 vaccines for everybody 6 months and above. So I think you may remember in August when I joined your show, and for all your listeners, the FDA came out in August and said, actually, COVID-19 vaccines are really only for people 65 and greater or with all these other health issues. And gratefully, the CDC has come out and said, actually, let's just do it 6 months and above. But we need to make sure there's shared decision-making in order for somebody to receive the vaccine. Shared decision-making should be done irregardless of what we're doing in medicine. This is a core cornerstone of what we do. What does that mean? We talk about the pros. We talk about the cons. We ask somebody if they have any questions, right? So when I'm going to be giving a vaccine, like for instance, for flu to one of my patients, I do talk to them about what are your risks? What am I concerned about? What are the cons of not getting it? And what are the cons of getting it, right? So across the board, we will be doing shared decision-making before giving a vaccine. What's really nice is lots of people can do shared decision-making. It doesn't just have to be a physician. It can be a pharmacist. It can be a PA. It can be a nurse. But I think there are barriers where people may feel like they don't have time, or provider doesn't have time, or maybe providers don't know how to do shared decision-making. I mean, those are barriers that could come up. But to your original question, Andrea, people, especially in Massachusetts, but across the country, I'm going to say there's a few states that are exceptions, and I'll go into that in a second, but can go to a pharmacy, can get COVID-19 vaccine if you have shared decision making. There are a few places: Utah, Nevada, West Virginia, Louisiana, Georgia, and Florida. They are all following FDA guidance. So they're saying if you don't fit in the category of having some sort of major chronic disease, or you're not greater than 65, you need a prescription. So that is for the people in those states, it will be more difficult.
Okay. I just want to point out really quickly that RFK Jr., he did this whole Make America Healthy Again. His commission released this Make Our Children Healthy Again strategy, and several people have pointed out that the leading cause of death of children in the United States of America is guns, and he never mentioned that, which makes you a little question the politicization of his report. But let's move on to something that's kind of a good news. Alzheimer's. Some good news on Alzheimer's.
This is very good. This is excellent.
Tell us.
Yeah, I wanted to send this piece in because I don't think there's so many news stories out all of the time that it's really hard to see the forest through the trees sometimes and see the good news. So what are we even talking about? Alzheimer's is obviously not the good news. We know that it is something that a lot of us are afraid of or worried about, or have a loved one with Alzheimer's. We also know that there's studies saying Americans have a 42% risk of some sort of dementia in a lifetime, and 60 to 80% of those will be people with Alzheimer's. There are several pieces of good news that have come out. One was from the Nature Human Behavior journal, which wasn't specific to Alzheimer, but I want to just point it out, which is around cognition, which is older people. So 68 and above is sort of their average. People who are really good at technology, computers, smartphones, tablets, all those things, actually have a lower risk of cognitive decline. So again, this is not causation. I'm not saying an iPhone prevents cognitive decline. I'm just saying there may be an association. That's really great. We're so worried about children for very good reason. There's some question is it because these adults already had foundational ability and therefore, had a good baseline? We don't know. But as far as Alzheimer's, there's a couple of really good things that have come out. So one is that recently the FDA came out with a blood test. It's not yet available to detect whether or not people have amyloid plaques or tau tangles. Those are two kind of fancy terms for things that put you at higher risk for Alzheimer's. So that is something that is sort of yet emergent, but we know that there is good scientific data coming for that. Second is there's now been these huge trials called the Pointer trial, looking at lifestyle, things that we've talked about all the time here. Nutrition, exercise, cognitive training does in fact reduce your risk of Alzheimer's. So even if you have ApoE, which is like a genetic that puts you at higher risk for Alzheimer's, you can reduce your risk. It's not a fait accompli. So that's great news. And then interestingly, speaking of the flip side of vaccines, there's good evidence to show that the shingles vaccine reduces risks of Alzheimer's in people.
Wow.
Which I know, right?
Yeah.
You sat up for that one, Marjorie. That's really
and I better
important.
figure out how to use the remote, Andrea.
Well, I did. I there was a lot of older people in my life who I thought maybe I would share that trial. And then the last piece is lithium, which is, again, it's still pretty early science, but there's very good data that's come out in mice looking at lithium being neuroprotective and small amounts of lithium orotate. So actually helping reversing some of the symptoms of Alzheimer's. So the studies in the mice show that the mice had very, very low levels to almost non-detectable levels of lithium in the brain, and for those who had like symptoms of Alzheimer's, and that could be reversed. So I would not recommend your listeners go out and start taking high levels of lithium, but that's fascinating, and we should have we will have a big trial on that. So that's good news. That's all good news.
We only have a couple of minutes left. I'm just curious about this. So the BRCA gene that's linked to breast cancer.
Sure.
Do you foresee with this particular blood test where dementia and Alzheimer's seems to run in families that we might get to the point where you could have that kind of test? I mean, people test for that gene to see if they have a family history, to see if they're more prone to it. Do you think that's possible for Alzheimer's?
It appears that is part of what they're doing. So not necessarily. What we do know is the ApoE gene puts people at higher risk, and we do have the ability to test for that now. So you're asking exactly the right questions, Andrea, and I can tell you're thinking like a scientist.
Well, I'm just thinking you combine that with the lifestyle changes, and that would be a huge advance for a very devastating disease.
I couldn't agree with you more.
And what you mentioned before, this blood test that might be able to detect these biomarkers. When do you think that might be available? And will that be something that people can get, or will that be something that's going to cost thousands of dollars so you won't be able to get it anyway?
I would imagine that once it kind of gets to market, it's probably going to be one of those things where it's very expensive initially and then the price comes down. But I was actually looking for that very answer, Marjorie, that I couldn't find in terms of when do we think this will come to market.
Okay.
Again, the good news is that we know this is a test that has been developed. And I think the great news, as Andrea pointed out, is that we do see really good evidence that lifestyle modification can mitigate our risk, even if you have this test and even if you have genetic susceptibility.
Well, it's all the more reason for all of this research funding that is being taken away for entirely political reasons to get back where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Because there's a direct, now talk about causation. There is a causal relationship between the inability to do this kind of research and the continuing devastation of these diseases. So, Dr. Barnett, thank you very, very much. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
See you later. Thank you, Doctor. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We've been speaking with Dr. Katherine Gergen Barnett, Vice Chair of Primary Care Innovation and Transformation at Boston Medical Center. She's also Associate Professor at Boston University's Medical School and an Aspen Institute Health Innovators Fellow. Coming up after this quick break, it's time to go to the movies with Boston Globe film critic Odie Henderson. I'm Andrea Cabral, in for Jim Browdy. She's Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
David McCloskey keeps writing spy thrillers, and the plots keep coming true. His latest book, The Persian, opens with an Israeli surprise attack on Iran.
Frankly, at times, I was tempted to tone it down so my editor wouldn't think I was making anything up that's too crazy.
The former CIA analyst on how the world's reality is often stranger than fiction on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Minute Women Home Care, providing senior home care services to families in the Metro West Boston area for over 55 years. Services include dementia care, fall prevention, live-in, and 24-hour care. MWHomecare.com. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing helpful digital tools, world-class providers, and coverage that help you live in the moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Marjorie Egan with former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety Andrew Gibran filling in for Jim, who'll be back tomorrow. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. And one more time, just so people don't go there by mistake, we are not going to be at the library tomorrow because of some technical problems. But Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey will be with us here in Brighton from 11 to noon for another edition of Ask the Governor. Okay, we're joined now via Zoom by somebody who was forced to attend a screening of the new film featuring the Bears' Jeremy Allen White as Bruce Springsteen. Boston Globe film critic Odie Henderson is also the author of Black Caesars and Foxy Cleopatras, A History of Blaxploitation Cinema. Hi, Odie.
Hi,
Odie.
Thanks for having me on again. Hello.
Can you tell us, are you under embargo, or can you tell us about Jeremy Allen White as the boss?
I think I'm under embargo. I mean, I just made it back. I mean, I'm still wearing my badge from
you are? Can you give us a hint? Can you give us a little hint?
Well, I don't think I'm under embargo because I've seen reviews for it, and they play Cannes or Venice.
Oh, okay.
But, to be on the safe side, I went in with trepidation because, I'm a huge Springsteen fan, and it's somewhat of a different movie than I was expecting, but it's still a biopic, and it falls back on a lot of the biopic things that I complain about in every review of a biopic that I write. So Jeremy Allen White, he kind of looks like Springsteen when he's sweaty.
Yeah,
he does.
So we'll give him that. And Jeremy Strong is in it, acting with a capital A.
Oh, okay.
So that's all I'll say. I will say I'll say it's better than I thought it was going to be, but then I went in thinking that it was going to be a disaster. So take that with what you will. I will be writing about it. It will be in my first New York Film Festival coverage, which will run in the paper on Friday and will probably be up about tomorrow or Wednesday. So I'll be able to speak a little more freely about it.
Okay. So I guess we're going to see all the probably 17 different versions of Thunder Road kind of thing where they play the song.
There's no Thunder Road, but there is Born to Run.
Born to Run, okay. All right. Okay, no Thunder Road. Boy, I don't know if I can go see it then without any Thunder Road. Go ahead.
I do like Jeremy Allen White. But as you know, Odie, I am a gigantic horror movie fan. I love them, all kinds of them. So we're going to have you give us your rundown since Halloween is right around the corner. I have seen Sinners, and I absolutely loved it. I haven't seen Weapons. I definitely want to see Weapons. Give us your rundown on movies, both classic and new.
We get some sound from Weapons,
we've got some,
too.
Yeah, we've definitely got some sound to speed you on your way.
I hate to say it, but his parents have been feeling unwell as of late, and I'm staying with them to help take care of Alex.
Oh, so it's serious.
Oh, no, it's not serious. Nothing terminal. It's just a touch of consumption.
A touch of consumption? I'm embarrassed to say, I guess I don't really know what that means. I thought it was something settlers got on the Oregon Trail. What is it, tuberculosis?
You know what? They are doing just fine, but they need to stay home.
That was from the movie, the horror thriller Weapons. That particular scene was school principal is just trying to do a welfare check with the students' parents, and a very creepy woman, she's got on sort of horror clown makeup, shows up in their place and sort of has this conversation with this principal about why the kids need to stay at home. I love stuff like this.
Well, the plot of it is kids disappear.
Yeah.
And except for one who happens to be staying with Aunt Gladys, who is played by an unrecognizable Amy Madigan, who deserves Oscar consideration for this. And so that the whole plot is they're trying to figure out, is the teacher responsible? Is the parents, are the parents responsible? Where did the kids go? What is the issue with this one kid who didn't mysteriously disappear? And it all kind of goes to Aunt Gladys, and that's all I can say about that. But Amy Madigan, a lot of people didn't know that it was her. I mean, if you look at it, this is the woman from Field of Dreams. And what was one of the Boston crime movies she was in as well. But she doesn't look anything like normal Amy Madigan.
Yeah. Well, and also who is the actress from Ozark? Who's in it?
Julia Garner, is it?
Yes.
I'm sorry, my brain is fried.
Julia Garner,
I think it is. Yeah. She's in Ozark, and Josh Brolin is in it also.
You're in post Springsteen biopic mode.
Well, no, I mean, I saw 26 movies at TIFF, and then I went directly to the New York Film Festival, and I've seen 9 movies so far at the Film Festival.
God! So, I'm surprised you're awake.
I'm surprised I'm awake also. I'm subsisting on about 3 hours of sleep right now.
Okay, Odie, well, we're glad you were able to greet us today because we want to hear all about these movies. Let's talk about this One Battle After Another with Leonardo DiCaprio. We get some sound from this, too. Apparently, in this little piece of sound, DiCaprio's character is struggling without the password to get information on a critical rendezvous.
I need this rendezvous point. You understand what I'm saying? I need it.
I understand. And the question is, what time is it?
If you don't give me the rendezvous point, I swear to God, I will hunt you down and stick a loaded hot piece of dynamite right up your asshole.
Okay, he's a little upset.
I'm glad you bleeped that. I was like, I hope to God they bleeped this before they ran it.
But you reviewed this, and what'd you say?
I didn't like it. I didn't hate it. Here's the problem. People came out of this movie, critics came out, and they started screaming it's a masterpiece. And I believe if you come out of a movie 10 minutes after you saw it and declare it a masterpiece, you are full of it. And I have a phrase I've always used when I was on Twitter called dancing the Hucklebuck. The Hucklebuck was a dance that they did in the 50s, and famously Ed Norton and Ralph Cramden did it on The Honeymooners. And so I said, when critics start dancing the Hucklebuck for something, I get suspicious. I mean, I can say that even if I join the consensus later, initially, how critics, we never have consensus on anything, do we? And so I started to be a little suspicious about it. Now, the movie's not terrible. I saw it in VistaVision, which you can see at the Coolidge if you can. That's the way it was shot. I explain what VistaVision is in my review, so I'm not going to explain it here. But it's gorgeous to look at. There's Benicio del Toro is fantastic in it. Regina Hall is fantastic in it, though she's given little to do. Leonardo DiCaprio is Twitchy Leo, as I call him. Like he's become Twitchy Leo. And Sean Penn gives one of the worst performances I've ever seen in a movie. And he's awful, and the movie is enamored of his character, which is one of the reasons why I wasn't crazy about it. I also think that it really does treat a lot of its minority characters as props. And that's where I got in trouble, because a lot of people aren't saying this or completely ignoring that the movie is more enamored of the white supremacist characters that are in it than the black and brown people who are actually doing the revolution. And so, but again, it's Paul Thomas Anderson, a director I'm not exactly crazy about, but he knows how to direct the movie. I'll give him that. He's very talented. He's one of the masters of framing images. That's why the VistaVision thing was so exciting. And he does use it to maximum advantage. There's a good car chase in the movie. It's almost 3 hours long. It's a commitment. And critics seem to think it's the best thing since sliced bread. And I'm like, sliced bread has existed a long time, and I don't agree.
Well, talk a little bit about Chase Infinity. I had never heard of her.
This is her debut.
It's her. Okay.
But she was on Presumed Innocent. If you watch that on cable.
Yes.
The one with Jake Gyllenhaal?
The new one.
Yes.
She's the daughter.
Yes.
I thought she looked familiar. Okay.
But this is her feature debut. I wish they'd given her more to do because she is talent.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I kind of had mixed feelings just looking at the trailer. And I didn't like Sean Penn's character right off the bat, just because I thought he was doing some sort of bad George C. Scott Patton imitation. And I thought...
Not Patton, Dr. Strangelove.
Dr. Strange. Yes, you're absolutely right. Dr. Strange. Yeah, I thought that was just... it was almost a caricature.
He takes it much farther than George C. Scott does. And I kicked myself because in the paper, I got George C. Scott's character's name wrong. His name is Buck Turgidson, and I was running through festival stuff and typing this stuff up on the run. And Jack the Ripper is Sterling Hayden's character, who is also similar to Sean Penn because it's the whole precious bodily fluids part of this movie. And you know, Doctor Strangelove was my number 6 movie of all time. And so, you know, yeah, oh God. Well, you might like it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was thinking watching these movies, unlike you and Andrea and my youngest daughter, horror movies, I like sunshine and happy endings, and I don't like horror movies.
Nothing better than a good horror movie.
You said Robert Redford's Out of Africa was awful. I thought it was wonderful. I loved it, even though it was a tearjerker and sad.
That's
and
a horror movie.
It's a horror movie.
That is actually a horror movie.
But that gives me a segue. You wrote a really wonderful piece about Robert Redford and his best roles. And you really, I mean, I had forgotten some of these movies he was in, which were absolutely terrific. So give us your take on his contributions.
You know, my mother was in love with Robert Redford, as everybody's mother was.
Right.
And, you know, I was more of a Paul Newman guy. But Redford, his directing work, he did Quiz Show, he did Ordinary People, he did Bagger Vance, unfortunately. He gave Scarlett Johansson one of her first jobs. Remember, she was in the movie that he made, the Western movie that he made. She was 13. As an actor, I always thought he was...
Whisperer.
Horse Whisperer, yeah. As an actor, I always thought he was a very good actor. He never coasted by on what he looked like. Even in movies like The Way We Were, which I absolutely despise that film. And, you know, he wasn't
Barbara
just coasting by on what he looked like. Sorry, Babs. I love The Sting. He's in Downhill Racer. The movie that I mentioned was Legal Eagles, which, you know, I always come from left field. Because the scene in that movie where I'm an insomniac, so the scene where they can't sleep and they are doing like raiding the fridge at their houses, respective houses, and watching Singing in the Rain. And Redford is so loose, it's so wonderful in that scene that you can remember a great scene in a bad movie. A lot of times, Belinda, you can remember a great movie itself. And it made me think about it. That was the first thing I thought of when he died, was how much I love that scene and how much I wish it was in a better movie, because they're both so good. But also, it's the only time I could identify with Robert Redford. I mean, he's gorgeous. Clearly, I'm not a wasp. But that was the one time I felt like I identify with this character, because I too am an insomniac and I am a stress eater.
Yeah. So I preferred Paul Newman too, but you know, Robert Redford wasn't bad. He was easy on the eyes.
And
I met him once, and he was gorgeous.
Did?
Yeah, at Sundance. Mm-hmm.
Well, he did do I think a wonderful thing for the industry with his whole Sundance creation. I mean, that was a big deal, right?
Yes, he did. I mean, both Newman and Redford did things for, you know, outside of just being actors and directors.
And The Sting was nearly a perfect movie.
I love that movie so much.
It really is.
That's
Comes
a great
as close
point.
as you can possibly come.
That's a great point. Every scene worked just beautifully, didn't it? Right to the end.
It really did.
Okay.
All right. So, Odie, I never really got, just like you don't get The Way We Were, I never really got why people thought Spinal Tap was so much better than it was. I thought it was good. I thought it was like it came in the beginning of the sort of mockumentary kind of a thing. And Christopher Guest, I think, is absolutely brilliant. And I love For Your Consideration and Best in Show. I love all of his stuff. Mm-hmm. But I never really got the first Spinal Tap. And now with Spinal Tap 2, talk about, how did you feel about the movie? And talk about how you felt about it in relation to the first one.
Well, I mean, I saw the first one. I got a kick out of the first one. I learned about that it even existed from Siskel and Ebert. Because, you know, a lot of these movies that were played in New York, and I'm still a teenager, Spinal Tap came out 41 years ago, my God. I found out about them, and I would sneak into the city and watch them. And I enjoyed Spinal Tap because the whole mockumentary thing was still fairly new. There were only a couple of big ones out, the Ruddles and a couple of other ones. So this was kind of sticking it into... bringing it up, this subgenre up into like public knowledge. And when I went to Stonehenge, I laughed because I thought about Spinal Tap. And so I really enjoyed the first one. I thought this was going to be an absolute disaster. And some people do believe that it is an absolute disaster. But I felt that it was a parody of all of these, like the Peter Jackson kind of documentary, all these documentaries where the shine a light where like Rolling Stones are now like 157 and they're still doing these documentaries.
Right.
I felt like it was both a satire and an example of what it was satirizing. And I laughed enough. If you laugh enough, you have to acknowledge that you had fun at a comedy. So I gave it 3 stars. So
okay, we got a little taste of this too from this is Spinal Tap. This is the new one, I believe, and not the old one.
Yeah, Spinal Tap 2, the end continues.
Just want to make sure. Okay, here we go with a little sound from Spinal Tap 2.
A lot has happened since the last time I saw you. Crypto! Have you been playing music at all?
I play music at a pub.
This is the site of Spinal Tap's reunion concert. Why New Orleans?
There was a cancellation.
Who was supposed to be there?
An evening with Stormy Daniels.
Oh.
Obviously, there'll be the regular merch.
Yes.
And Hope has had a rather brilliant idea.
Tap water.
This is artisan.
Sounds pretty good.
I did think when I saw that Rob Reiner was back and the original cast was back, with the exception of the guy who played the manager, who unfortunately passed away. Yeah. I thought to myself, they're smart filmmakers. They're not going to have too much taken off of their speedball that it's going to be bad. I just was saying that for the first Spinal Tap, it's sort of like in Big Lebowski territory. There are people that revere that movie, and I never actually revered it. I enjoyed it a lot. But you think the second one is worth seeing?
I do. And in terms of the Big Lebowski, I think it's the Coen Brothers' worst movie, even worse than The Lady Killers, which gets me in trouble all the time. But I stand by what I say about the Big Lebowski. It's a movie that the way my mother feels about Raising Arizona, which she absolutely hates, and I understand why.
I love Raising Arizona.
Oh, I do too. I love Raising Arizona, but it is obnoxious.
Okay. Well, talk about another movie that I don't think I'll be seeing because I can't take all this. It's just particular junction, but The Long Walk. Tell us about that.
Stephen King book.
Brightens up your day.
Well, I reread the Stephen King, Richard Bachman, obviously, book. I read it when it came out in '79. I reread it before I went to see the movie, and I was one of my it wasn't a King book I liked. And the second time I read it, I had the same problem I had with the first time. It's too much going on. Remember, this is his first novel. Technically, Carrie was the first one that got published, but this is the first novel he wrote.
Right.
So you see the origin, the genesis of Stephen King, but he makes a lot of, mistakes that first authors would, make. And so the movie is streamlined really, really well by J.T. Molnar as the screenwriter. Did a really good job. He halved the number of people doing the walk. He took out a couple of things. Then he got Francis Lawrence, who did the Hunger Games movies, and Constantine. He got actors. He got Cooper Hoffman, who was Philip Seymour Hoffman's kid, and he got David Johnston, who was pretty much everywhere now and is a fantastic actor. He's in Rye Lane. He's in Alien Romulus.
He's
in
great.
This. Both of them are fantastic in the film, and the casting, it's well cast. It is extremely violent because, the plot is you have to walk.
Yeah.
These 50 people, I might cover your ears, Mark. These 50 kids have to walk 3 miles an hour. It's 4 miles in the book. And if they slow down, they get 3 warnings. And after the third warning, if they continue to slow down, they get shot. And they get shot a lot. And so you have to use the bathroom and eat and do all this stuff while you are maintaining a speed of 3 miles per hour. And there's 50 contestants, and they have to kill 49 of them. So that there's one person left standing.
And why are they doing it? Tell people why they're doing it.
Well, in the movie and in the book, it doesn't really make sense. I think in the movie, they tried to say that it was a recruitment done by Mark Hamill, who plays the Major, who is overseeing this, dystopian game. This is the second Stephen King movie this year that Mark Hamill is in. He's in The Life of Chuck as well. He's great in both of them. He's Oscar-worthy in The Life of Chuck. So these kids, or teenagers, I should say, are on this walk because it seems like they have been recruited. In the book, they volunteer. And that's why. If you win, you get whatever your heart desires.
Right.
Yeah. But the chances of your winning when there's one wins and 49 get shot to death.
And you got to
times.
walk like 300 miles at 3 miles an hour without stopping or sleeping or anything else. So keep that in mind. It is very violent. I will say this. It is. The kids get blown away.
And when he wrote this, we didn't have the kind of mass shootings, school shootings. No. The level of gratuitous violence was still a relative novelty when he wrote this as Richard Bachman.
Well, remember, he wrote Rage as Richard Bachman, which is about a school shooting, which he pulled.
Right.
So that you can't read Rage, or you can find a copy of it out of print, but he pulled that one simply because of the school shooting type things.
But it does make you wonder why they would make the movie in the era of gratuitous violence. And I am a huge Stephen King fan. I have every single book, pretty much with one or two exceptions, that he's ever written in hardcover, first edition, because I just love Stephen King. But I was a little bit leery about this one. I'll still see it, just because of, 50 people start out and 49 are going to get shot.
Well, it's a good movie. It's actually very well done. I don't think they don't show all 49 people being shot. Some of it is, I don't think it's really gratuitous. It's more graphic than I was expecting. I also think it's rather timely considering what's been going on. There is an option of the kids aren't shooting each other; they're being shot by the military.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, we only have a little bit of time, a little bit more than a minute and a half left, but real quick, here's a clip from the 75 Rocky Horror movie show when the Stranded couple, Brad and Janet, meet Dr. Frankenfurter. Here it is.
Well, I want to go.
Well, we can't go anywhere till I get to a phone.
Well, then ask the butler or someone.
Just a moment, Janet. We don't want to interfere with their celebrations.
This isn't the Junior Chamber of Commerce, Brad.
They're probably foreigners with ways different than our own. They may do some more folk dancing.
Look, I'm cold, I'm wet, and I'm just plain scared.
I'm here. There's nothing to worry about.
See you next time. So, 50th anniversary is here. How many times should we see it at midnight?
Well, I talk about it in my piece, and I also did a quiz, and I also went to the Rocky Horror Picture Show on Saturday.
Your quiz was great. I saw that in the paper.
You.
I had to read upside down, get the answers.
Well, they weren't supposed to put the answers in the paper. You're supposed to go online and take the quiz outright. But no, I went on Saturday to a Shadowcast here in New York that's done by Double Feature. They did the Shadowcast at the Quad. I hadn't seen the movie since I saw it in my 20s, and then I saw it when I was 13 at the Waverly. So that was my first exposure to it live, and being a Rocky Horror virgin, you know what happens to them.
That's
the
right.
movie, I had so much fun on Saturday.
Yeah.
I totally forgot how much fun the Shadowcast is, because if you watch the movie without it, it's pretty lousy. But I love the songs, and for a movie to be continuously running for 50 years, and to have been made 50 years ago, and to be as sexually fluid and open about it, and even on Saturday night, people got up and talked about how they were queer or they were LGBT, and how this movie helped them find their tribe, and how they felt safe running around and watching this film. So regardless of how I feel about the quality of it, I think its importance is not to be understated.
Yeah.
I saw it for the first time. I knew of it or learned of it by watching Fame, because there's that scene in the movie
I mentioned
Fame.
that. Yes,
yeah.
I mentioned that in my piece. Doris goes up on stage.
Yes, and they do the time warp. Yep.
Yes. I did the time warp on Saturday. I will say I did.
Good for you.
Hey, well, Odie, I appreciate you coming after your grueling ordeal of seeing 117 movies in 2 days.
Good to see you. You're a warrior, Odie.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, everybody. Take care.
See you soon.
We've been speaking with Odie Henderson. He's the movie critic for the Boston Globe. He's also the author of Black Caesars and Foxy Cleopatras, A History of Blaxploitation Cinema. Coming up after this quick break, there's just enough time left in the hour for our beloved and bemoaned Two More Things segment. I'm so looking forward. I'm Andrea Cabral in for Jim Browdy. She's Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH. We're also streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
As AI goes mainstream on college campuses, some professors see digital-free classes as cutting edge.
I think you should encounter people in your education who show you how to use AI. But if you want to get stronger and faster, you need to move the weight yourself, and you need to run the distance yourself.
And students appreciate this old school cool.
In a lot of classes, you're just sitting and listening, and I think the pressure is kind of on us to talk and to notice things.
I'm Kirk Carapezza. That story later today on GBH's All Things Considered.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Porter Square Books, hosting Lily King with Heart the Lover, a new novel of desire, friendship, and the lasting impact of first love. October 9th at 7. Info at portersquarebooks.com. And the University of Massachusetts Amherst. UMass, the state's flagship public research university, empowers students to be the future in the pursuit of progress for Massachusetts and beyond. More at umass.edu.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety Andrew Cabral is here for Jim, who'll be back tomorrow. I'm Marjorie Egan. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Time now for our quick but meaty segment, Two More Things. Andrea, what is your thing today?
So I'm a little hung up on this mural debate over in Cambridge. So there was a mural that was actually created by AI, a guy named Sean Hope. Did a mural there. It's a 20-foot banner. It's actually, I've only just seen a representation of it in the paper, but it looks like it was an absolutely gorgeous mural. And someone ripped it down. And the suspicion is that it may have been because it was created by AI. And so you're sort of getting that tension between artists who are creating and people who are creating with AI and saying that it is no less a creative process. And part of the reason that it interested me, and I saved it for two more things, is because there's also a creation of an actress named Tilly Norwood, who's been created by the company Particle 6, created actually by an actress. And there are actually agents looking to sign this AI create. She's not real, she's AI. And agencies are looking to sign her to be in films. And it just is interesting to me because it's about creativity from humans, by and from humans, and the supplanting of that, which creatives who use AI say it is not being supplanted, it is an adjunct to creativity, versus people who say if it's not the real person creating the art, or the act doing the acting or whatever it might be, then it's not real and it has no place in our creative world. So that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, that whole thing is scary. A mural's one thing, an actor's something else.
Yeah, but I think those two things are connected, and I think one leads to the other. What's your thing?
Well, and my thing is just continuing stories very upsetting about what is going on with immigration and ICE in this country. People may know right here in Massachusetts, this 19-year-old teenager was arrested by immigration officers up in Milford. 36 hours after he was taken, the parents may know something by now. This was as of yesterday, but they didn't know where he was. He just was kind of disappeared on the way to work at a farm with his two buddies. They found the car later with the window shattered. He's 19 years old. His crime was coming to the country illegally with his parents. When you're 11, I don't even know if that can be a crime, but in any case, it's a civil offense. Then you may have seen over the weekend this horrible footage of this mother who was upset because her husband was being taken away. This was in a Manhattan, a federal courthouse, this ICE officer, and happily he has been relieved of his duties, thank goodness. But he shoved her and attacks her and throws her to the ground right in front of her two children who were seen crying in the background. And then this Iowa superintendent gets arrested and detained by ICE immigration as well because he overstayed his visa. But again, it's this disappearing part that people and their families don't know where these people are. And the last thing is that we always heard about that the Trump administration is going to go after criminals. It is a civil offense to come to the country illegally.
Not a crime.
It is not a crime.
Civil offense.
But the number of people without criminal records now has surpassed those with criminal records, meaning people who committed the civil offense and coming here for a better life or because of persecution.
Contrary to what those commercials that are trying to recruit existing law enforcement into this thuggery are saying. Exactly. They are not going after people with criminal records, but it's all part of the plan.
Awful stories.
We're thankfully out of time this hour, but coming up after the 1 o'clock news, Princeton's Khalil Gibran Muhammad. I'm Andrea Cabral, in for Jim Browdy. She's Marjorie Egan, and you're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH. We're also streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
This is listener-supported GBH. It's your community, your voice, made possible by your support. Help fund the news you depend on. Pitch in online at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the Boston Speakers Series, continuing its season at Symphony Hall with 7 evenings, including Ken Burns, Outliers author Malcolm Gladwell, and geopolitical economist Pippa Malmgren. BostonSpeakers.org. And SNH Construction, committed to using craftsmanship and technical expertise to build spaces that work, and professional management to guide you through the process. shconstruction.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Marjorie Reed, and ahead on hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, educators all across the country are being fired for their posts about Charlie Kirk. Universities and colleges continue to bend the knee to Trump, including Harvard. We'll talk about the latest Trump administration moves, how they're shaping an already turbulent landscape for higher ed with Princeton's Khalil Gibran Mohammed.
I'm Andrea Cabral in for Jim Browdy. Then, Boston City councilors are waging war on delivery apps, blaming delivery drivers, their scooters, and their mopeds for endangering public safety. We'll open up the phone and text lines. Is all of this uproar overblown or justified? Do you have your own delivery driver horror stories? And how are you going to get your stuff if no one delivers it? Importantly, how much public safety are you willing to sacrifice to have your favorite ramen just a few clicks away at any given moment? All that and more next on BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Louise Schiavone. An in-depth probe is underway in Grand Blanc Township, Michigan, where a gunman killed 4 people, injured several others, and set a church ablaze during a packed Sunday worship service. Sheriff Chris Swanson of Genesee County, Michigan, told reporters this morning,
"You prepare in peace to perform in chaos. I saw it live. I saw what you trained for, what you planned for, and then reality hit yesterday morning. In a bright sunny day when people went to worship. But what I also saw is every level of government law enforcement work together for the good of the people."
Police say they killed the attacker, who they say was a Marine veteran and lived in a nearby town. Reuben Coleman, acting FBI special agent in charge, called the attack an act of targeted violence, and authorities are still examining possible motives. The FBI says the scene of the attack is still being processed, and its behavior analyst unit is deeply involved in the investigation. Law enforcement authorities say that now all persons are accounted for. President Trump and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are meeting at the White House. They are discussing the latest American proposal for a potential end to Israel's war in Gaza. But as NPR's Emily Feng reports, it's still uncertain whether Israel and Hamas will agree.
Many of the points in the proposal have been raised before. For an example, an end to the war in exchange for all the hostages returned to Israel. What is slightly new is Tony Blair, the former British Prime Minister, could lead an international consortium to oversee the reconstruction of Gaza at first. But other points, like the total disarmament of Hamas and a hard timetable of when Israel would withdraw its forces, are sticking points. And all the while, Israel's military continues to pound northern Gaza, where some residents have not been able to leave this area because they say they have nowhere safe to go. Al-Auda Hospital in northern Gaza said on Sunday that Israel's ground operations there killed 13 Palestinians who were brought to the hospital. Emily Feng, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
A big video game maker is going private. NPR's Scott Horsley reports on the sale of Electronic Arts.
A trio of private equity firms is buying the video game giant Electronic Arts in a deal valued at $55 billion. EA is the company behind popular games like Madden NFL and The Sims. The buyers include Saudi Arabia's public investment fund and Jared Kushner's investment company. Lufthansa says it's adding more than 230 jets to its fleet by the end of the decade to keep up with strong demand for air travel, but the airline also says it plans to cut about 4,000 administrative workers, thanks to efficiency gains tied to artificial intelligence. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
President Trump meets with congressional leaders from both parties this afternoon as a spending stalemate threatens a government shutdown by midnight Tuesday. Wall Street, the Dow's down 20 points. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon with the latest from the GBH newsroom in Boston. I'm Craig Lamolt. Most national parks would likely close in the event of a government shutdown, including in Massachusetts. A new report finds that national park tourism in Massachusetts contributed $1.4 billion to the state's economy in 2024. GBH's Diana Dame has more.
Visitors to national park properties in Massachusetts spent $950 million in 2024,
which sustained almost 9,000 jobs, according to new data from the National Park Service. The state's hospitality industry benefited the most, with visitors spending 2/3 of that money on lodging and restaurants. Retail stores, gas stations, and campsites also saw significant spending from visitors. National Park Service Acting Regional Director Steve Sims says national parks tell America's story while fueling jobs and businesses across the Commonwealth. Diana Dame, GBH News.
The Celtics are getting back to work this week. Players are returning to the court at the team's training camp. And even though injured superstar Jason Tatum won't be playing anytime soon, he still plans to be a presence as the Celtics prepare for the season ahead. Speaking at the team's media day today, the forward said it's been a long journey as he recovers from the Achilles injury that cut last season short. But he says a bright spot and a sign of progress was a recent on-court workout.
It just felt really good to be on the court and, dribbling the basketball, going through a workout, just feeling like a basketball player again.
The team has not given a timeline for Tatum's return. The Celtics preseason gets underway next week against the Memphis Grizzlies. Some clouds this afternoon, temperatures near 80, and it looks like a pretty nice day tomorrow. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on Thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. I'm Marjorie Egan. I'm here with former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety, Andrew Cabral, filling in for Jim, who'll be back tomorrow. We will not be at the Boston Public Library tomorrow because of technical problems, but we will be here in Studio 3. The Governor, Maura Healey, is going to join us from 11 to noon for your questions and ours. We're joined right now, though, on Zoom by Khalil Gibran Mohammed, Professor of African American Studies and Public Affairs at Princeton and a non-resident senior fellow at the Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation at the Harvard Kennedy School. He joins us monthly. Hello. Thank you for joining us again.
Hi, Khalil.
Hi, Marjorie. Hi, Andrea.
So I wanted to start by talking with you, Khalil, about this all across the country, educators getting fired for comments they made over about Charlie Kirk or about the death of Charlie Kirk. This is becoming a familiar routine, it seems, this policing of speech. What do you think about this?
Well, this is certainly the most dangerous escalation that we've seen so far in the Trump administration's war on higher education. You'll recall that J.D. Vance took over Charlie Kirk's podcast in the days following his murder. He interviewed Stephen Miller, one of the senior advisors to Donald Trump. The two of them made very clear that they are now working with the White House in coordination to go after any individual, organization, agency, or entity that they have defined as essentially a terrorist threat to the United States on the predicate that their criticisms of Charlie Kirk, the person, and not Charlie Kirk, the victim, is wing extremist movement in the United States of America. So this is an incredible situation evolving out of an already unprecedented assault on free speech in America.
Can you give us a little bit of a rundown on sort of the numbers of educators that have been fired, the kinds of things that have led to their terminations? And this isn't, people should keep in mind, this is local schools taking action to further this as well. In the case of local educators, and also talk to us about the absolutely gobsmacking lack of pushback to this.
Well, I'll admit I haven't tracked the latest numbers. Last week, the number was around 60 in higher education. Yeah. I believe if we count those in K through 12, the number is well over 100, probably pushing close to 200. And we can't forget that the assault on educators doesn't just end with higher education. It's very much targeting teachers at all grade levels. The common context in which people have been targeted for being fired is that they've said something critical of Charlie Kirk. Some have been celebrations of Kirk's death, which I find morally challenging, just as a matter of recognizing that all of us share a common humanity. Nevertheless, most of these folks have said something in reference to Charlie Kirk's the life he lived and the beliefs that he articulated, and the many verifiable statements of what I would consider racism and sexism. He was an apologist, as he proudly boasted, for Western civilization, which meant he supported policies that by definition dehumanized non-Western peoples and suggested they didn't belong here. He consistently claimed that Black people in one degree or another were not as smart or capable as white people. And one of the more common controversies around whether or not he would be afraid getting onto a plane and if he saw a Black woman pilot. There's a lot more to say, but the point is any version or variation of pointing to his actual speech was by definition a context where someone could in fact be fired. I want to quote J.D. Vance just so that people are clear precisely that his direct role as Vice President of the United States has played a part in this. He said, quote, "If you are a university professor who benefits from American tax dollars, you should not be celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. And if you are, maybe you should lose your job or your university should face a loss of funding."
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and some of them were not. I mean, some of them were a lot worse than others, but this one I thought was very anodyne. This woman that was at Ball State University in Indiana, she said Charlie Kirk's death is a reflection of the violence, fear, and hatred he sowed. It does not excuse his death, and it's a sad truth. I mean, there was a little blaming the victim there, but it was not certainly up to it wasn't calling him a Nazi or anything that other people have done. And she did say it does not excuse his death. It's a sad truth, and she's suing, but she's lost her job. There's a lot of knee bending going on here in general. I was surprised to read about the University of California at Berkeley giving the names of students and faculty to the government for its supposed anti-Semitism probe, and to me now, by this point, we should be saying alleged anti-Semitism probe, because I don't think this has anything to do with anti-Semitism, really.
Good. Well, I think most journalists are still saying alleged, at least in mainstream media. I want to say one thing, Marjorie, before responding to what's happened at UC Berkeley, and that is I don't think it serves us well as a country, based on our Constitution, to try to sift the merits of whether or not what someone said about Charlie Kirk is good or bad or mild or extreme. It misses the point entirely.
You're right. Yep, you're right.
I think we could all agree that the speech in this country cuts in both directions. Most right-wing extremist speech that is responsible for most violence and political violence in this country is never parsed along the lines of, what is respectable, not respectable, which is to say that right now it is completely weaponized and empowered against most people. We're not even having a conversation about it. So that's just a kind of response.
No, that's a good point. I stand corrected on that. It's a good point.
And also, with respect to what the University of California at Berkeley is saying, essentially they're saying we're complying with with the Trump administration's executive order and the anti-Semitism task force. On one hand, we shouldn't be surprised that lawyers are going along with this. On another hand, we should be absolutely outraged that lawyers are going along with this, because the regime of compliance established by the Trump administration is precisely what is before the courts. Allison Burroughs here as a federal district judge in Massachusetts is basically already decided on a case that essentially is implicated in this question of what power does the federal government have to police speech amongst faculty, administrators, and constituents within a university setting. That organizations like Berkeley and others are complying in the midst of this attack. Again, I wouldn't say it's surprising, but we should expect better. And the richness of this conversation turns essentially on a false allegation at its root that anyone who could be found teaching about sexism or gender sexuality or women's history or race and racism draws a direct line to anti-Semitism is absolutely absurd. It's precisely the context in which I am on Harvard's list, which Harvard gave to the same anti-Semitism task force, along with 37 other faculty members identified as anti-Semites at Harvard University. So this isn't even just about Berkeley.
Okay, so I do believe in saying it out loud, that part of the way that whatever kind of ism marches in is when people don't say it out loud. There's more to this than the money. There's more to this than the fear of losing funding. The absolute refusal to link arms as institutions of higher learning, to link arms as very powerful law firms, to link arms as members of any sort of system set or institution, and say, we will not do this because this is not who we are. People say that all the time. They kind of, gun violence isn't who we are. The refusal to do that, to me, speaks to an underlying desire to let all of this happen, to want all of this to happen, because it just doesn't make sense. These are some of the most powerful institutions in the world, some of the most powerful law firms with the best talent in the world. Everybody that has bent the knee, everybody that has kowtowed to this, they are in the best position as compared to the guy on the street or the kid, the 16-year-old who gets snatched out of school or snatched out of a car and his parents don't know where he is 48 hours later. This speaks to me to something that is on some level desired. It's just that no one is willing to admit that.
I agree with you across the mixture of ideologies expressed by leadership at various universities around the country. For example, we saw the president of Barnett College, attached to Columbia, write a very vigorous defense of more disagreement on university campuses, which none of us would object to, but it was done in the spirit as if the core critique of the Trump administration is spot on, that universities have been hijacked by groupthink, which is a term she refers to in the essay. And I could not disagree more with her notion that somehow Trump is actually helping to build better universities. Now, that being said, I think that one of the ways in which we could measure the profound bias towards conservatism that already exists in this country, that, in my opinion, is the status quo, is to look across the institutional landscape in the way, Andrea, you have described. In every single one of these board conversations with university leadership, there is general counsel who works for the university, and there is our lawyers on the board, and they're saying our fiduciary responsibility to this institution is to look out for ourselves. And what I mean by conservative ideology, that is exactly the heart of conservative beliefs, that we as individuals are responsible for our autonomy. We extrapolate that to corporations, which have personhood because of conservatives. We extrapolate that to the way that universities and other nonprofit entities function. They are looking out for themselves. There is no massive collectivism project in the United States. There certainly isn't one that has the same kind of power as conservative ethos has in maintaining the status quo. So yes, this is what I would say. Places like Harvard, in my opinion, have shown their stripes. They do feel like the zeitgeist of DEI went too far on that campus, and they are rolling it back on their own without a whole lot of help from the Trump administration. But there is also something baked into the institution's way of thinking about responsibility, and they are thinking about themselves and not about the power that could come from collective action.
Which is not what they advertise to students to draw them to those colleges. They talk to them about expanding their minds and expanding their work and their contribution to the world and thinking about others post-graduation. So there's hypocrisy there too.
Oh, that's well said. This notion that you should lead in a world to care for others. Yes, I agree with that completely.
Well, for a while there, we were congratulating Harvard for its lawsuits against the president. But every time you open up the paper, there's another story about getting rid of the Black Lives Matter banner that had been up there for 5 years. And then we learned late last month that they removed their designated spaces there for the Women's Center and the offer for LGBTQ student life. And now they're, getting rid of minority recruitment programs. So, I guess I know you're talking about getting together as a collective, but it's the cliche. When you've got more money than God, can't you stand up for a little while anyway? Your fiduciary concerns maybe secondary?
Well, I think Harvard has always prided itself on being a leader in higher education, a market maker. And I think that leadership at Harvard now sees an opportunity to guide the ship of higher education to a new normal. And that new normal would include essentially the evisceration of any explicit acknowledgement that various policies and practices that have excluded white women, along with all women of color, and various groups whose intellectual contributions to world knowledge as defined by women's history or gender and sexuality studies or queer theory, which have just become lampooned in American popular culture. I mean, one of the things Charlie Kirk talked about a lot was the absurdity of gender identity and expression. And I don't know if you guys saw this news story, but the president of Texas A&M University was recently forced to step down after a student recorded a professor teaching about transgenderism. Yeah. The student recorded a video that went viral that basically the professor was describing the actual reality that transgenderism is real, that people do identify neither as male or female, which is not to say that the professor's indoctrinating the students, but in fact acknowledging that we have people in our society who choose to opt out of biologically determined gender identities. That is not complicated.
No.
But the point here is that this notion that the wealthiest, most prestigious university is starting to look like any university when it comes to kowtowing to Republican legislators, as what happened in Texas with the firing of that teacher later and eventually the president stepping down, even though the president roundly condemned the professor. We have a situation where if you are at Harvard University, the university is essentially telling you that you don't belong here.
Right.
That bodies of knowledge that explain how you experience the world are not as important or relevant. I mean, right. That's where we are.
Well, what you call, for Harvard, what might be the new normal in higher education, I'm actually calling the old normal, because as I've been saying since before the election, it's the most significant and intentionally intended to be permanent re-entrenchment of straight white male supremacy that this country has experienced since Jim Crow. That's what it all is. You can call it, anything else that you want to call it. You can call it anti-DEI. You can call it, sort of a realignment of priorities. You can try to cloak it in this notion of that it's all about anti-Semitism, but it's a re-entrenchment of white supremacy. So let's talk about the step that we sort of, I think many of us suspected was coming, which is the White House now moving beyond the simple retraction of funding to the affirmative funding decisions made based on colleges that align with their priorities. Talk about that. And that's happening now. They're considering that now.
Well, we saw, for example, that Harvard is now under a kind of financial audit based on the notion that because it had to take out a bond of $1.2 billion in response to the Trump administration canceling the commitment that they made through various competitive grant programs, that now its finances are in question and thus needs to put up more money, in this case, to prove themselves worthy. It essentially need to put up more collateral in order to be considered for federal money. They're also developing a new standard for H-1B visas, which will bring millions of dollars into the federal government by taxing higher education for essentially hiring foreign talent to address various workforce needs on usually research universities, where the current pipeline of existing American or domestic students is not sufficient to fill the graduate student teaching responsibilities and clinical research needs. Harvard, like many other schools, are looking at a potential $10 million price tag when you add up the 100 to 150 on average for some of the research universities like Harvard or Johns Hopkins and others, as a way for the federal government now, along with tariffs, to now tax universities for essentially hiring people that they need to do to fill their mission.
You know, you've been at Harvard, you still are at Harvard, and you're teaching you're down in New Jersey at Princeton now. When people talk to you about or allegedly liberal bias in higher education, what do you say to them?
Well, I'm always struck by, one, the scales here are way off. You know, whatever we might say of liberal bias, you know, we're talking about really one generation and a half. I mean, I went to college in the 1980s. Honestly, the struggles of the 1960s didn't produce anything remote to a critical mass, which got us to about 4 to 5% of most selective colleges, like I went to the University of Pennsylvania, by the late 1980s. So it's absurd to think that somehow liberals have destroyed higher education. America, until Donald Trump, remained the wealthiest, most powerful economic country in the world, with talent both produced here and drawing from talent from the rest of the world. So the premises of the attack are really not about the facts of our capacity to produce innovation and wealth and opportunity, even if it's still stratified and unequal across the very populations like Black people and women and Latinos. Even in a world where I'm celebrating this, I recognize that those disparities are actually real. So the scales are way off. But it's also the case that the solution to liberal bias, according to people who actually believe in free speech, is more speech. The Trump administration is absolutely committed to shutting down any speech that could be identified either subjectively or objectively as liberal, which is why J.D. Vance's threat to anyone critiquing Charlie Kirk is basically like putting the most powerful government entity in the world for social studies teachers in any classroom in America. It is insane. And there is no liberal equivalent to this. Yeah. There is no precedent or history of liberals saying that some person accused of racism as a faculty member ought to be fired. And the federal government comes in and says, absolutely. And we're going to use the full force of the federal government to support you in that.
And is why I don't understand how any college professor could write an op-ed that embraces the basic premise of what Trump is saying, knowing, and does it in the context of Charlie Kirk's murder, knowing that Charlie Kirk devoted a significant portion of his organization to targeting professors whose speech he didn't agree with and getting them fired. But he's being lionized as being a paragon of free speech. I mean, the levels of cognitive dissonance and incongruity and just, like, to use your word, insanity, they're just one on top of the other. And it's at the point now where it just makes your head spin.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you mentioned Turning Point's Professor Watch List, which is likely to become weaponized with even greater significance, given that now it's going to be a tool, likely, of the federal government to identify faculty members who should feel the full wrath and pressure of the federal government. You know, I have colleagues at both Harvard and Princeton and everywhere that I've worked who are on that watch list. And guess what? What are they on the watch list for? For teaching academically rooted histories and literary studies and social science about the world we live in. And so this is not a move towards a future of American higher education where there's more speech and more debate. This is a move towards absolutely rank McCarthy-style censorship that will eliminate our ability to actually understand the world that we live in.
Well, you always think, and Andrea over here is always telling me I'm a little naive, Pollyanna, and I probably am. But, we were moving, starting in the 60s, to expand rights. To expand rights of women, people of color, gay people, trans people. And what people seem to forget is so much of what's going on from the other side is just taking away fundamental rights of people to have a job or to have an apartment or to live a life. It's like squashing this in a way that just has shocked me, I guess, and maybe I am naive and a Pollyanna, but it's taking away people's rights. That's what they're talking about.
Well, and having to fight your own government which is where those rights were established in the first place. Now having to fight government to maintain them, sustain them, keep them in some way. But I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, Khalil.
I was just going to say that, there is a ray of light in this, in that we did hear some pre-MAGA conservatives essentially defending the fact that there is no legal category for people working in public spaces or in public context of hate speech. And pushing back against Attorney General Pam Bondi. Because at some point, the old school conservative movement is going to face a crisis. It already is, but beyond the pale of what we've already seen, where they are shredding the Constitution on their own terms, not on the terms of liberals stretching the meaning of basic rights, but that they themselves. The First Amendment is the First Amendment precisely because it is our guarantee that we get to critique government. And that is being lost in every dimension of American society. So I just want to applaud those conservatives who did fight and candor in more recent weeks and days to say, listen, hate speech in America is not by definition unconstitutional. And therefore, we cannot criticize people who criticized a person who, in our opinion, in this conversation, trafficked in hate speech.
We might even consider calling them very fine people from time to time.
Okay.
Good to see you, Khalil, always.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
We've been speaking with Khalil Gibran Muhammad. He is Professor of African American Studies and Public Affairs at Princeton, a non-resident senior fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School's Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation, and a BPR contributor. Coming up after this quick break, we open our lines to get your thoughts on how consumerism online is clogging our city streets. Delivery drivers double parked in the bus lanes and the bike lanes, scooters splitting lanes, driving the wrong way down the road. What are we going to do about it? I'm Andrea Cabral in for Jim Browdy. She's Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, and we're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
David McCloskey keeps writing spy thrillers, and the plots keep coming true. His latest book, The Persian, opens with an Israeli surprise attack on Iran.
Frankly, at times, I was tempted to tone it down so my editor wouldn't think I was making anything up that's too crazy.
The former CIA analyst on how the world's reality is often stranger than fiction on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And The Trustees, presenting Halloween on the Hill, a celebration of autumn at the Trustees Long Hill in Beverly, running Wednesday through Saturday nights until October 30th. Advance tickets required. Learn more at thetrustees.org/Halloween. And Minute Women Home Care, providing senior home care services to families in the Metro West Boston area for over 55 years. Services include dementia care, fall prevention, live-in, and 24-hour care. mwhomecare.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Andrew Gibran is in for Jim Brady. He'll be back tomorrow. And I want to announce again, we are not going to be at the Boston Public Library tomorrow because of technical problems. We'll be there, I hope soon. But meanwhile, the Governor, Maura Healey, is going to be with us from 11 till noon here in Brighton. Okay, so our penchant for instant gratification is clogging city streets, as Andrew just pointed out. DoorDash and Amazon delivery trucks and vans and those scooters that park wherever they want to, even in the bus lane, drive the wrong way down the streets, cut you off at the corner. The Boston City Council, at least one guy, Councilor Ed Flynn, is trying to do something about it. He wants to ban mopeds and e-bikes from third-party food delivery, arguing they're a danger. Speeding and driving down the sidewalks, as I said, driving in the wrong way on those sidewalks. So the lines are open, 877-301-8970. What do you think of the idea of banning e-bikes and scooters and mopeds, menace to pedestrians? Actually, there was a tragedy in Copley Square where the pedestrian was run over and killed. And what do you think about this, though? I mean, lots of people are ordering their food delivered. Lots of people like to get their pizza while it's still hot. Does this issue deserve a little bit more introspection? There wouldn't be so many delivery drivers clogging up the streets if we all decided to just go to the store and get our food, shop less online, or walk down the street to the neighborhood restaurant instead of getting delivery 3 times a week. 877-301-8970, 877-301-8970. What do you think, Andrea?
I think it would be great if leaders, elected, appointed, whoever they are, stopped before they recommended a ban of anything. Like when you're elected to something or appointed to something, a position of leadership, and you're confronted with a problem, and this is a problem. These scooters are everywhere. They're like, there was one going the wrong way, coming toward me, right on the line the other day, and it was definitely a food delivery service. Yes, it's a problem. But when you're confronted with a problem, don't do the binary thing. Ban it. Either we have it or we ban it. Let's ban it. This is a terrible thing. Let's ban it. How about we think about ways that we engage the delivery services in these apps to make their drivers more responsible? We put cameras on the scooters so that you can see what they're looking at. If they're causing accidents, maybe then the places that they're delivering for bear some responsibility for that if they're driving the wrong way. And they're having some standards in who gets to drive and deliver for them, and they're monitoring it. How about you work within the industry? Because people aren't going to give up having stuff delivered, and just saying banning it isn't going to get you there. I agree that it's a problem, but I think could we take a thoughtful approach to it and figure out how to keep, with public safety in the forefront, how to keep public safety where it should be, make sure that as much as possible people have access to jobs, but that they're behaving the way you have to behave in society and not under the gun to get a pizza to you before the steam comes off it.
Well, I think that's one of the problems. I think they do better financially the faster they get the stuff to you. It's not one of the deals.
No, that's absolutely true.
That's why
you get a better tip. Well, but part of that, Marjorie, is this thing where you have to rate everything that happens to you. You have to rate the driver. You have to rate the delivery. You have to rate the quality of the food.
Don't you
everybody
hate that?
lives. I often won't do it just because it makes people live and die by what some stranger who may or may not be sane thinks about their delivery.
Well, also, it's like every place you go to urgent care, you go to your doctor's office, you go to a restaurant.
Everything.
Everybody sends you. You have to rate the experience. I don't want to spend my time rating the experience.
No. Isn't it enough that I bought something from you?
Exactly.
Do I have to tell you how I feel about it?
And then, of course, once you answer like 1 through 5, they never get you really. It's like 1 through 5, or 1 through 10. Right. You can't really explain anything. And then when you get through that, often the Comcast does this. You get through, and then they want you to do more.
Right.
So they say, "Oh, let me ask you a few more questions." You could be doing Comcast for like 20 minutes. You know what I mean?
And I say this in full disclosure as someone who does order stuff, and I get deliveries, and so, I'm as guilty of that as anybody. But they're really, if you're going to try to solve a problem, especially a public safety problem, think about how you create an environment that sustains and maintains safety.
Okay. So how do you feel about these scooters weaving in and out of traffic all around you when you're driving down the streets? That's one of the things. They do weave in and out. It makes me nervous. I think I'm going to run one of them over. Or they're going the wrong way down the street. Or that you may be afraid to cross the street because of one of these scooters coming towards you. How do you evaluate your shopping habits, too? Should we really be able to shop less on Amazon. I must admit, I have not been able to give up my Amazon yet.
I don't have a Prime membership anymore.
You are
in emergencies.
good.
I have still ordered, but I paid the shipping and handling when I needed something sort of right away.
Okay,
not making an excuse for it, but I don't know. That's the only way I can show displeasure is with my dollars. So I cancel subscriptions and memberships.
And if you want a pizza, can't you go to the store, the pizza place, and get the pizza? 877-301-8970. Steve from Arlington, you are first on the Scooter Hour.
Hi, Steve. I hope you're eating pizza.
Yeah, no, I'm not eating pizza right now, but I swear, I think there's been an increase in scooter traffic.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
And it's just, you're right, they're just all over the place, and they come from nowhere. And I almost hit one today in a Target parking lot. I mean, I stopped to turn into a parking space, and he came right up on my left side, turned into him. I mean, so I think it's a good idea to go ahead and ban all these scooters. Just take them off the road and find some other way, you know?
Yeah. Steve, thank you for the call. I mean, he articulates one of the big problems. I think I'm going to run them over. That's what I've been scared.
Right.
You're in traffic. You're in two lanes of traffic. They're weaving in. They're weaving out. All that kind of thing.
But they're not supposed to be doing. It's the same thing as if you said, okay, because teenage drivers drive poorly too often, we should ban them from driving until they're 25 or something. When you're faced with the fact that delivery services are a thing, they are a thing. They're not going to go away.
They're not going to go away.
People aren't going to stop calling them, right? And people aren't going to stop wanting to make money off of it. So what you've got to figure out is who is responsible for these drivers, who is responsible for these scooters, who owns them, and who is policing the way that they drive. And what do they, is there something connected to them being able to keep the job that you can say to these places that deliver, your people are endangering other people and they're endangering themselves. You have to come up with a thoughtful solution.
I mean, they're all over the place now. You got the electric bikes, you got the regular bikes, you got the scooters on the sidewalk. I'm not sure who's supposed to be where. I think the bike lane is supposed to be for bikes, but you see scooters.
Yeah,
and
I don't think electrified
bikes.
Vehicles are supposed to be in the bike lanes, but I don't know.
I think they are in the bike lanes. Okay, Melissa from Newton says, you're blaming the messenger. The problem is the corporations. UPS and FedEx drivers used to find a safe parking space and then deliver, but when the company started timing drivers for efficiency, they started parking anywhere. We need to regulate the companies so they have safe and fair working conditions, not making a hard job.
She's exactly right.
Even harder for workers. That is true. That and somebody else says they see college kids all the time riding fast scooters on the sidewalk. I've not seen that, but I'm surprised that I haven't. 877-301-8970. Mark in Newport. What do you think, Mark?
Well, I think that the people who drive any kind of motorized vehicle should be licensed in some way. And they should follow the traffic patterns. If they're riding on the sidewalk in the wrong direction and so forth, they should be ticketed like anyone else. It just makes perfect sense. Any kind of motorized vehicle on the roadway, should have a licensed driver for everybody's sake.
Yeah, some of them don't have. Mark, that's a good point. I'm not sure what the regulations are because some places
maybe somebody
have
will call us and tell
plates
us,
and some don't have license plates.
Yeah,
and some people are driving with massive amounts of. I don't know how they fit all this stuff in those big, huge boxes in the back of the scooter, and you can't see a license plate. So I don't even know what the deal is.
Now, scooters. I mean, sort of. Gas-powered motorized scooters are distinguishable, obviously, from electric bikes, which have a battery.
Right.
And, most people are using sort of the pedal assist. Not everybody does. But, yeah, if somebody knows, if somebody, does this kind of stuff for a living or is familiar with the regulations, where the distinguishing lines are, what separates the need or the requirement to be licensed and how motorized is defined, we would like to know that.
Dan is frustrated. He says, helmet, no helmet. License plates, no license plates. Bike lane, no bike lane. I saw a guy sitting on a bird scooter in the middle of the lane doing 30 plus miles per hour. It's like somebody riding a cane strapped to a skateboard. Yeah, I am amazed that you see these people flying down the streets and they've got no helmet on, no nothing. They're just flying down the street on these skateboards. I would be absolutely petrified. Police should be allowed to enforce rules of the road for any motorized type of transportation and ban them from sidewalks. That's Robbie from North Scituate. Of course, the thing is, the cops, they can't do everything. I mean, the cops, people go through red lights
But that's part of Ed Flynn's point. The point that Ed Flynn is making is that the police just don't have the resources for this kind of enforcement, and it's sort of the Wild West out there. So what are you going to do? But I agree that making the companies more responsible for what their employees are doing on the road, that's, if you're driving a company car and you're driving recklessly, you get into an accident, your company is going to be responsible for that.
Yeah, if you ever noticed, if you go through heavily traveled intersections like Kenmore Square, people are running the red light at Kenmore Square all the time. It's probably like the fourth car that finally pays attention to the red light. Rebecca in Florida says, if we ban deliveries, Jim Browdy will forever be doomed to struggle to find parking every year when he has to go out and purchase his own birthday cake, which is kind of a sad situation, Andrea. Let's go to James in Wakefield. Hi, James.
Hi, James.
So I think my kind of take on the issue is that it's sort of like when bicycles first came out, people were complaining about bicycles, saying, "Oh, they're so dangerous. They're going to clog up the roads and everything." They were saying that, women shouldn't drive bicycles and that sort of thing, which is patently ridiculous. And I think
I didn't know women shouldn't drive bicycles. I missed that one. Were we banned from bikes?
There was, it's just the whole it's gonna be horrible for the women of the world and that sort of thing. And I think that it's patently ridiculous in that same way. I think that car drivers are just as bad, if not worse, than scooters and bicycles and that sort of thing. I think that we shouldn't be. I think that we shouldn't be hyper focusing on these scooters and stuff. I mean, there is a logic to holding the companies, like the delivery companies, accountable, but I think there's a little bit of fear mongering there. I think that you go to any Rotary and the cars are insane. Yeah. And so I don't think it's that much of I don't think it's a bigger issue.
Okay, James. Thank you for the call.
That's kind of funny because Rotary etiquette does kind of get under the lack of Rotary etiquette.
That's
does
right.
kind of get under
people
my skin.
In the Rotary
but
have
I wasn't.
Right away.
I hope people don't think that in talking about scooters and delivery vehicles, I was defending cars, because I'm not defending them either. I'm on the road every single day and I see how poorly people in cars drive. I was just talking about some of the more dangerous things I've seen, and I know that, and the young, some of these delivery drivers do on these scooters in very heavy traffic.
Okay, here's someone defending the scooter drivers, says scooter delivery drivers make a pittance on each delivery, so they need to make money, make many deliveries to earn a living.
That's very true.
A driver can make only $3 on a delivery from Copley Place to the seaport. Then they need to get to the next food pickup place before making money again. God, I'd be exhausted. Copley Place to Seaport, that's a long way to go.
And it begs the question about where all those extra fees that you pay for these deliveries, a convenience fee. And then they say, please, and I'm a minimum 20% tipper before anybody calls in and suggests that, if you tip them more.
You're a great tipper.
I am. I believe
Guys
in
at
it.
the Lennox Hotel
I know
love
people
you.
are working for it. No, I'm a good. Yeah, they should. No, but I do believe in tipping, all of that kind of stuff. But we're getting charged all of these other fees that are not going to the drivers and not going to the people who are, however dangerously they might be driving, risking their lives to get us a hot pizza.
Jackie in Newport says she was hit by a scooter driver speeding on the sidewalk. And then somebody else from East Boston said the scooters are out of control, right in the middle of the street, slowing down the traffic, like they have the right to be exactly in the middle of the street going 10 miles an hour.
Do the companies provide the scooters, or do you have to have your own scooter? I mean, does it depend on the size of the company, or are you delivering for a local pizza shop or a chain or a franchise? These are the questions I have no answers to.
I don't know. Marilee from Boston.
Hi, Marilee.
Thank you for calling.
That's a great name.
Marilee. Yes. Are you married, Marilee?
I am Mary, although it's not spelled that way. But anyway, I just wanted to bring up something that you guys just alluded to, which I think in many, many cases, these drivers are not employees of the place that they're delivering for. And so you can't, I mean, you can't easily, I guess, you can't clamp down on the employers because they're self-employed and they're being paid really crappy, it's not even wages, right? They're being paid to deliver and they're counting on a tip.
Yeah, I think the delivery companies employ them, right? The DoorDashers of the world. I think that's, or maybe they might be independent contractors for them.
But you still have to have an agreement of some kind where you can say, look, if you're going to work for us, if you're going to deliver for us, these are the rules that you kind of have to abide by. Or you pay to put cameras on the scooters.
Yep, I like that, cameras on the scooters, but who's going to pay for that? I mean, it's just follow the money, right? Why aren't they employees?
Right.
Because it's cheaper to have them be not employees.
The gig job industry, yeah.
Marilee's dog is upset. I think the dog is pro-scooter.
There may be a delivery driver at the door.
Delivery driver at the door.
Thank you for the call, Marilee.
They do have that thing on Amazon where you can get all your packages delivered on one day.
Right.
Where you say, I want them all
I do that
delivered
because
on
it's
Saturday.
better for the environment.
Yeah, and they're not in 17 different boxes. I mean, when you look at people's trash barrels, I mean, like 9/10 of the recycled stuff.
Right, is all Amazon boxes.
It's all Amazon. Right. And nobody, don't you used
to... But
to...
it's also Amazon Sprinter vans that are in the way. Sprinter vans, part of the...
What are Sprinter vans?
Those are the Amazon vans that deliver, all of those. You want your packages, right? But so that means that they have to have something to deliver them in, and that's the roads are clogged with Sprinter vans doing deliveries of bigger things other than food.
What about drones? I mean, people have talked about drone deliveries. I don't think I want drone deliveries.
I don't want
to have people coming down the street. I mean, how do you know what that is? I mean, wouldn't that freak you out?
Yeah, I'm not. I wouldn't. Having drone deliveries of this new company that comes into town.
Oh, yeah? How'd it go?
They were spying on, the drones were spying on everybody and everything. They were getting deliveries of things that were being overheard during their telephone conversations. They would say they liked something. And then, this company that was trying to sort of ingratiate themselves would say, here's a present from us. We understand you like this author or whatever. Yeah, so that's where we're going, between that and AI. Right? It'll be delivered by AI, right? Or an AI-operated drone.
That's right. Ron from Seabrook. Thank you for calling, Ron. Hi.
Hi. Great subject. I just spent 2 weeks in California, and you ain't seen nothing yet.
Oh, no.
The sidewalks are crowded with little robots with food in them, and they're going up and down the sidewalks.
Wait a minute. Little robots? Elaborate on that. What do you mean, little robots?
It looks like a little wheelbarrow, and it's basically a cooler or, an insulated box with robotic, GPS.
So there's there's not a robot driver? This is just like a little robot going out by itself?
Yeah, it's going up, and not one. I mean, the sidewalks are crowded with them. And they've got sandwiches and stuff in them, and they're going up and down the sidewalk. And I guess it beeps or something, and it finds whoever it's looking for, and the transaction is electronic. There's no cash being exchanged. But the streets themselves are full of all the people you're talking about, the delivery drivers, but there are also fleets of these creepy, silent, white, robotic-looking taxis. It's a company called Waymo, W-A-Y-M-O, and you call one of these things like you would an Uber or a Lyft, and it shows up. There's no driver. You climb in it, and it takes you someplace, and you climm out.
Okay.
That's Minority Report.
Ron, thank you for that report. Our staff just found a picture of the little weird wagons. They look like wagons with a little flag. Samo does the food delivery, and here's a picture. Wow, that's really creepy. It's got a little flag on the top, and it's got like a little big plastic basket or something.
And it must have a camera. I mean, they would have a huge theft and vandalism problem, right?
I don't know.
Do you know if they have cameras, Ron?
It says on delivery in the top, so I guess you get out of the way. Here comes this little delivery thing. That's weird.
Yeah. Well, the movie Minority Report had that stuff in it. Even the Total Recall had taxis that were driven by robots.
Yeah.
So,
how would you feel about that?
Taxis driven by robots?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get any driverless cars. I mean, I know that we get in a lot of accidents by ourselves, but I don't want to be in a driverless car.
Okay. I won't make you go into a
do you?
Car. Not really. Not particularly. No, I'd like to have control over the wheel. That would be good.
Yeah. Or like a person that I could say, watch out. You know what I mean? I mean, would the little robot even hear me if I was screaming in the back seat? I don't know. I wouldn't be able to get the passcode.
I want to know how these robots that are delivering food, people know that there's something of value inside that box, how they're keeping it from people just stealing them or breaking into them, or, people just being annoyed that they're clogging up the streets and kicking them down the sidewalk.
Well, they have cameras, but of course you could go up there with your face like the ICE people and put a cap
Cameras
on.
don't stop bank robberies. Why would they stop me doing something to a robot that's delivered a food?
Okay. Many college campuses deliver food to dorms with Kiwi Bots. Do you know about Kiwi Bots?
Nope, never heard of it.
Okay, maybe you guys could find about a Kiwi Box. I don't know what those are either. Oh, it's the same thing. Different brands, same thing. Well, we're behind the times here. I didn't know there were Kiwi
apparently,
bots
I'm just having
and little robots all over the place. 877-301-8970 is our number. We're talking about the fact that one Boston City councilor wants to. Actually, we're not talking about anything because Jared Bowen has just arrived in the studio.
No.
But you're a Boston guy.
Absolutely.
He always
that shade of blue. And with the color of your eyes is absolutely fabulous.
Jared is a handsome guy. We all know that. He's a very handsome guy. We're all jealous. Okay. All right. You live in Boston.
I do.
How do you feel about these little drivers and these little scooters driving around Boston all the time?
You mean when you're reporting my obituary someday? It's because I was mowed down by one of those?
Yeah, you do feel like that, don't you?
All the time.
Yeah.
They're on the sidewalks. I tell you, I was running this morning, and I'm now on alert because there is a bike lane right next to me where I was running. I'm on the sidewalk, and I cannot tell you how many times they've come up on me, or they're coming at me, and I'm the one dodging into the bike lane as the runner, as the pedestrian. I don't understand this.
There you go.
So,
how do you feel about drones or kilowatt
You're missing
bots?
the point. You're missing the point.
What's the point?
I want my pizza hot.
Oh my God!
Oh, are you in support? Did I miss?
No. I mean, that's what people. But that's what that's why they're rushing.
Yeah,
it's because they don't want to hear it or get a bad 2-star, 1-star rating because their food was cold and somebody complained.
Okay, look at this picture. Look at this picture of the Kiwi Bot. Can you see it, Jared?
I've never seen that before.
Do you want that thing delivering your food?
Well, it looks like it would keep it hot.
A cooler. It looks like a thermal cooler.
It also looks like it would move about 3 miles an hour. Or does it go really fast?
No, it's on track. It's on. You can see the track like a tank. It's an army tank. It's got the tracks like an army tank goes.
That's right. It looks like an army tank.
Yeah, you can put other things in there.
What's probably true is that it's fully armed. If you do try to rob it, like tiny guns come out or something, and it's like, step back, step away from the food.
If that is pizza and ice cream, I would just climb in there and ride it around the city all day long. That would work for me.
All right, Jared, what do you got in that show of yours?
So today we're going to this book. I just read this book. It's incredible. It's called Dark Renaissance. It's by the Pulitzer Prize winning writer Stephen Greenblatt, who's written a lot about Shakespeare, but this is about Christopher Marlowe. In Elizabethan times, he was quite the dude who was running around as part of conscripted for a spy ring, as part of a murder, ends up a nasty ending himself. And this is all in Elizabethan England, where people are being quartered and beheaded and disemboweled on every other street corner just to show the people who's in charge. It's a fascinating book.
Did he write some of Shakespeare?
He worked with Shakespeare, and he definitely influenced and inspired Shakespeare.
I thought he was just like a ladies' man. That's
Christopher Marlowe.
His reputation was
Actually, he was a man's man. If you're going to be specific,
really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. That I didn't know.
Was he killed in a lover's triangle?
The times I've seen him portrayed, that wasn't true. So that's good to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, hurry up. We're almost out of time.
And then, sorry, I got all distracted. And then we're talking about Our Town, which is just opened the stage company. Who doesn't love that play?
Yeah.
And every time you see it, if years have elapsed, it has a whole different meaning for you. We'll talk to its director, Courtney O'Connor. And then Caitlin Hanna, you may have read about. She has set up a dating service. She does this by trade, but she's also set it up on the Somerville Community Bike Path. So if you want some dating advice,
that's great.
I love
hop in that little machine and go over to the bike path and get some dating advice.
If you see a Kiwi bot riding around town, you might see Jared's head sticking out of the top of it.
I love the
Having
culture
eaten all
show.
your ice cream.
I really do love the culture show.
Thank you. We have a lot of fun.
All right.
Thank you, Jared.
Thanks, Jared. And thank you all for listening to another edition of BPR. You can keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast. You can check us out on our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. If you tune in tomorrow, we apologize again for not returning to the BPL, but the show must go on. It will go on. We'll still host Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey for September's edition of Ask the Governor. She's going to answer our questions and yours from 11 to 2. Also, CNN's John King, Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung, and NBC Sports Boston's Trenni Casey. Our fantastic crew is Zoe Matthews, Aidan Connolly, Nicole Garcia, and Hannah Loss. We have additional support from Mira Donaldson. Brad Lewis ran our YouTube stream today, and our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. Stay tuned to The Culture Show with Jared Bowen. It starts immediately after us on 89.7 GBH. Marjorie, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, Andrea. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. I appreciate you being here.
Have a good rest of the day.
You too.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Liberty Mutual Insurance. Liberty believes progress happens when people feel secure and exists to help people embrace today and pursue tomorrow. Learn more at libertymutual.com. As war ravages their homeland, 3 Ukrainian artists choose to stay, armed with their art, their cameras, and for the first time in their lives, their weapons. Watch POV, Porcelain War, tonight at 10 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org.